Master of Reality by John Darnielle. Copyright 2008. Part of the Bloomsbury Academic 33 1/3 book series. From the back of the book. Imagine that you are a man from space, and you don't speak English, and you never heard of weed, and you landed in California, and the first person you meet up with took you to his house and said, "Hey, check out this band." And then he played you Sweet Leaf. In my opinion, the man from space would hear that song, just the crunchy guitar sound and those bass notes. Geezer Butler is the best bassist. It sounds like his strings are made from lime jello salad, and he would start banging his head because the riff on Sweet Leaf, that is something anybody could understand. Anybody. Black Sabbath's Master of Reality has maintained remarkable historical status over several generations. It's a touchstone for the directionless and common coin for young men and women who have felt excluded from the broader cultural economy. John Darnielle hears it through the ears of Roger Painter, a young adult locked in a Southern California adolescent psychiatric center in 1985. Deprived of his Walkman and hungry for comfort, he explains Black Sabbath as one might describe air to a fish or love to an android, hoping to convince his captors to give him back his tapes. John Darnielle was born in Bloomington, Indiana, and was raised in Southern California. He sings, writes songs, and plays guitar for the Mountain Goats, and writes South Pole Dispatch monthly for Decibel magazine. He lives with his wife in Durham, North Carolina. Read by Shane Logun. Dedication, page 1. To all the children to whom I ever provided care, in the earnest hope that your later lives have brought you the joy and love and freedom that was always yours by right. Dedication, page 2. Douglas Wolk, Jess Harvell, Tim Kirk, Jonathan Letham, David Barker, Lalatri Darnielle. Thank you. Section 1. October 11, 1985. Fuck you all, go to hell. October 12, 1985. Fuck you all, go to hell. October 13, 1985. Even if you make me write in this every day till they let me out of here, it is only going to say one thing: get used to it. I hate all staff, all doctors, all RTs, and anyone who reads this. Fuck you all, go to hell. Fuck you all, go to hell. October 14, 1985. If you do not let me out of here for my sister's birthday tomorrow, I will never ever forgive you, stupid sorry fuckers. They took me to the doctor tonight and gave me back all my clothes except my shoes. Why can't I have my shoes? Fuck you guys. All of you, fuck off and die. Go to hell. October 15, 1985. I am sitting here writing this. It is 10:30 at night and lights out was half an hour ago, which is stupid, by the way, and I am angry. I want to kill somebody, and that is not a threat. So if you write that on my chart, all it will do is make me want to kill myself even more. As you know, because you've read this every day, which you do not have the right to do, by the way, make me keep a journal and then read it. That is like the stupid, most evil thing. But what else can I expect from people who lock somebody up for things he says when he did not do anything wrong? My sister's birthday was yesterday. My family had to bring her onto the unit with a cake and no candles because, oh no, we can't have any fire in here because the stupid adolescents would probably burn everything down. Well, actually, we probably would because you deserve it. But they came with a cake and we sat and ate it until I started to cry because I felt so stupid sitting around a hospital table in my stupid hospital slippers, and the bigger kids could see me crying, and then I felt worse than I have ever felt my whole life thanks to you. And my mom was looking at me all sad and sorry, and my sister wasn't saying anything. And then they finally left, and I felt like I had ruined my sister's birthday, when really it was you doctors and nurses and stupid staff who ruined my sister's birthday for me and for my whole family. Even if my family is fucked up, we deserve better than that. And so I went back to my room, but could I put on my Walkman headphones and listen to my tapes to calm down like any normal person would do? No! Because you took all my stuff away from me when I got here, and you won't even give it back. When I go to the nurse's station for meds, I can see my notebook and my Walkman with my bag of tapes all sitting in a cubby with my name on it. But you should take my name off it, because if I can't have anything in it, then it's not mine, it's yours. You should do that. You should just put the hospital name on the cubbies instead of the patient's names, because you are just taking people's stuff and keeping it. But you do not have the right to take my stuff away. And if you really wanted to help me, you would just give me my Walkman and my tapes back, because they help me, and you don't help anybody. I have never felt worse in my life. October 16, 1985. Living just for dying. Dying just for you! Suck it! Those lyrics are from the album Sabbath, Bloody Sabbath by Black Sabbath, if you were wondering, Gary. October 17, 1985. Hey, I only write in this journal when I feel like it, not to earn stupid points so I can go on your outings or have second snack. In fact, like I said, you do not have the right to even be reading this. And anyway, I am not interested in going on a bowling field trip with a bunch of losers. So nothing today. P.S. Oh, by the way, do you like the pretty picture on the front of this notebook? Now you probably hate it. But it is the symbol of my favorite band, Black Sabbath. I have 3 of their tapes in my cubby in the nurse's station. The other ones I have in there, which you should give back to me, are one by Helix, 2 Iron Maidens, including Power Slave, and one by the new band called Merciful Fate, who my friends say are gay because they wear makeup. Not everybody who wears makeup is gay, though. October 19, 1985. Yesterday I had therapy and you said, "This journal is not for me, it's for you, Roger. So you should write in it for yourself, not to me." Yeah, right, Gary. That is probably why I have to hand it in to the PM staff every night before lights out, right? If it is for me, why can't I just keep it? And how would you even know to tell me that if you were not already reading it? Come on. Maybe these other kids are dumb enough to believe that. Better luck next time, though. Last night my mom and my sister came again. They looked like somebody had been kicking them all day. My sister tried to bring me more of my tapes, including Crocus, Headhunter, Rush, Hemispheres, Led Zeppelin, Houses of the Holy. She is super sweet sometimes. It was so great when she tried to give those tapes to staff. It was a whole big thing. First she tried to give them to me in the visiting room. That was when I said, "They don't let me listen to music in here." Well, my sister knows that pretty much the only thing I care about is music, so she said, "Why?" That was when I started crying again, but it was not as bad as last time because now that I have my clothes back, I can visit in the visitor's room instead of in the day area. But my sister, she was all mad and she just got up and left. Mom tried to stop her, but she walked up to the nurse's station and just started yelling at them to give me my Walkman. Those stupid nurses were all, "Oh shit, what are we gonna do? We can't restrain somebody who isn't even a patient." And they were just helpless and freaking out. And my sister was up there yelling and waving my tapes at them. "There is nothing wrong with my brother's tapes!" Ha ha ha! When they saw the giant brains on the cover of Rush's Hemispheres, I thought they were all going to start peeing in their chairs. Only then, after my family left, I thought, how stupid do you have to be to look at a cover with a giant brain and some naked guy or whatever, and then think you know everything about the album just from that. When actually Rush is a band that you might like. Some of their songs are 18 minutes long. So then I was mad and sad again, like as soon as they left, because my sister was trying to help me. You are not even trying to help me. My sister knows if I had my tapes, they would help me. I can really figure things out when I'm listening to my tapes. Otherwise, I get so distracted. If you want me to focus, you should let me do it the best way I know how. You should at least give me back Black Sabbath, Master of Reality. It is my favorite. October 20, 1985. It is before wake-ups. I am writing this in the dark again. Normally on the morning like this, I would put on my headphones and just kick back. When I wake up, I have music in my head, and I like to start out the day that way. Guess not today, you assholes. That was when I got the idea to try to tell you about my favorite tape, which is also my favorite LP. I will explain that later. If you don't think this is a good way to use this journal, then fuck you, Gary. Okay, so Black Sabbath is a rock band. They are from Birmingham, England. They have been popular since 1970, although their first album is not as popular as their other albums. It was a less hard album than what they did later. I do not own their first album, which is just called Black Sabbath, but my friend Mike loaned me his copy. I want to give it back to him, but now I'm in here, so he will have to wait to get it back. Right now, it is just sitting at home, not doing anybody any good. It is a UXB! I don't know if you saw this show they had on Channel 28, but it was called Danger UXB. It is about soldiers in England who go around finding bombs that are sitting in people's basements or in subway tunnels. They are UXBs. That means unexploded bombs. To me, the first Black Sabbath album sitting in my house is a UXB because it has not gotten the chance to explode inside my head yet. It's hard to explain, but hey, I tried. The first time I listened to Black Sabbath was on a rainy day after band practice. I was stoned. You will probably tell my family this. I don't care. When most of my friends get stoned, they say it feels rad, but I usually feel kind of weird afterwards. It was like that on that day. I smoked with everybody after practice, and then I just walked home. When I was getting to the tunnel under the freeway 2 blocks before my house, it had started to rain. Well, before I left practice, I borrowed the first Black Sabbath album from Mike, our drummer, because I was looking at the front cover when I was all stoned, and it gave me a certain feeling. It wasn't trying to feel all good and happy, but it wasn't totally weird either. It was like, it was weird, but it wasn't trying that hard. It was like a weird person made it and showed it to other weird people, and they all thought it was good, but if you were not as weird as them, then it would look totally haggard to you. We say haggard to mean gnarly in my school. So I got inside the house, my hair was wet, and the rain was coming in through my shoes. My stepfather was asleep in his room because he works the NOC shift from 11 at night until 7 in the morning. And I went back to my room. A lot of the pot had worn off because it takes me about an hour to walk home from Mike's house. And I was just feeling tired. So I put on the record and listened with headphones, and it was totally depressing. Ozzy, he is the singer. He was singing about witches and devils and wizards and corpses, but there were barely any stories. Not like in Rush songs where if there is a wizard or whatever, there will be a whole story, like a Robert A. Heinlein book. I have read about 3. Those books and Rush songs, they all have big stories and lots of things happen, and there is some big meaning. But on the first Black Sabbath album, the whole story in the song would be like, there is a wizard and he is going to kill you, or there is a devil and you are the sacrifice, song after song. Like stories you try to make up around the campfire, only you didn't get enough time to think about your story before it was your turn to tell. So when it got to your turn, all you did was said everything you had in your mind and hoped it was scary, even though in your story, nothing really happened. So on this song called Black Sabbath, first song on the album, Ozzy keeps saying, "Oh no, 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 please God." That is the chorus of the song, more or less. I think it's supposed to freak you out. But on that day when I was listening, it just made me feel like the world was sad. Like, it's sad to be alive. And that is not normally how I feel when I listen to Blue Oyster Cult, AC/DC, Frank Marino, and Mahogany Rush, different from Rush, or newer bands like Helix, Scorpions, Winger. Normally, even the hard music is supposed to sort of take you higher, but when I borrowed this album from Mike, I knew it wasn't just the pot. It was like the whole point was, everything is a bummer, even your fantasies are a bummer. I hate it when people talk all, la la la, drugs changed my life, but when I listened to that song on that rainy stone day, everything changed. My hand is tired, so I will write more soon. If you are reading still, I will be surprised, but if you are, I hope you enjoy the Black Sabbath story because telling it is taking my mind off of my totally fucked up situation. October 21, 1985. Okay, that was the most retarded day ever. For one thing, the nurse was somebody from adult unit. She is what is called a float. That means she does not usually work adolescent, but she floated over from adult because somebody, Peggy, called in sick. We missed you, Peggy. You don't know what you've got till it's gone. The float looked like she thought we were all going to go insane and storm the unit like monkeys. She kept threatening to put us all on lockdown. Good luck, stupid float. You are just a float and nothing you say is going to make any difference here. Go back to the sad alkies and divorced people over on the adult open unit. This unit is already locked. There isn't anything you can do to us anyway. So, after the most retarded morning medication ever, where she made us all stay in our rooms and get called out one by one like a bunch of psycho babies, they brought over another person from the adult unit, and this is where we graduated from half retarded to drooling on your lunch retarded. My theory is that the whole thing was the float's idea, but it was a social worker. We call them antisocial workers. Her name was Joan, and she talked for about 10 minutes about how it is important to take care of the spiritual side of yourself, and she made a big deal about how everybody is spiritual, and it doesn't mean you have to go to church or believe what your parents tell you to believe. You only have to look inside yourself and listen to that still small voice. Okay, number one, you can fool some of the people some of the time, but do not try your weasel bullshit on us because we will pull your card. Joan, I like you, but your still small voice, that shit is straight out of the Bible and everyone knows it. Do you think that we don't have prissy purity queens running all around our high school wearing t-shirts that say the still small voices like it was a band name, only when you ask them about it they start quoting the Bible? Well, we do. So we already know where you are getting your still small voice from the Bible. If you want to read your Bible all day, cool for you. I can't judge you and you can't judge me. But anyway, she gives us the pep rally about how spirituality is important, and then the presentation starts, which is a special guest named Tony. And aren't we all so proud that he graduated from the adolescent unit 4 years ago, and now he has graduated from high school and has a really interesting life, and let's all welcome Tony to the unit. Well, no, Joan, fuck that guy actually, because all he is going to do is tell us how your rules are for your own good and how we should do what we're told. So Tony's up there in the dining area talking about what he was like before they brought him into the hospital and what it was like for him once he got here and how he started to understand things better after he had been here for a while. There are 8 of us staring at him and we are not really listening because who really cares? We are mainly thinking no, Tony, you do not understand, because have you noticed how many kids are here for your pep rally? 8 kids. And how many beds are there in the unit? 30. And they're all full. And do you know where the other kids are today? Well, yes, you do, because you were one of them when you were here. They are off in the classrooms or on off-grounds activities having fun. The kids who are here to listen to you are the kids who are not going to get better. We get streamlined into the classroom after we have been here 3 days usually. Well, today was my 7th day, and they haven't even talked to me about school yet. And the other kids who are at your happy talk, well, they have mostly been here longer than me. They are not trying to get better because they are not part of your world. They walk a lonely road. Oh, it's a hard road, as Ozzy would say. The older ones have figured out the system enough to know that their parents' insurance will run out after 90 days, and then they'll either be sent to the state hospital or they'll get to go home. If they go to state, there's no way out of there. That will suck, but if they go home, that will also suck, maybe even worse. So they are hopeless, and they don't even try, because what is the point? Which is kind of a how much does Jesus hate me situation when you think about it. Hey, Tony? But, of course, nobody says anything, because that will only make the boring spiritual counseling last even longer. Plus, like I said, we like Joan. She is sweet, and we don't want to wreck her group. Or most of us don't anyway, which brings me to the other piece of retarded news, which is my new roommate. They brought him in while I was asleep. I sleep pretty hard, so I didn't even know he was here. I just woke up and the other bed in my room had some kid in it. He was awake and crying with his face down in the pillow. That is how everyone wakes up on their first day here. It is really sorry. So he is still in his gown, walking around the unit like he wishes he could die, and everybody knows how he feels, so we are just giving him some space. But of course the float has made him go to spiritual counseling to watch Tony tell everybody that he has gotten down deep in the Word. And that means he reads the Bible all day and thinks every word is written just for him. And everybody is sitting in the day area pretending to pay attention and wondering what's for lunch when my new roommate completely fucking goes off. He just stands up and starts throwing chairs. Everybody is kind of scared because it is a scary situation. But at the same time, the chairs are all flying in just one direction. Tony wants to run to the nurse's station, but the exit is all the way across the room. So he ducks behind a table. Meanwhile, my roommate is screaming so crazy you can't even follow what he's saying. The tears are rolling down his face and he's all red and his gown is coming off his shoulder. And you just know that's making it even worse because he probably feels like a big angry baby of evil destruction. But he has decided, fuck it, I am going for it. Nobody even knows his name yet because he wasn't at breakfast and the float just sort of dropped him off at a spiritual counseling when it started. I bet she wishes she let him sleep. Instead, she had to help 3 other techs restrain him. He spit in all their faces and called them evil fuckers. I would like to hear what his still small voice sounded like just then. I bet it was more spiritual than most of you could even deal with. After that, they really did put the unit on lockdown until lunchtime, which was still 2 hours away. My roommate was in the happy room, tied to the bed, so I was alone with this notebook and some crayons. And I drew a picture of the cover of Master of Reality. I can't draw pictures, but that's okay, because there are no pictures on the cover of Masters of Reality. It is just words written in a wavy style, which you would probably say is drugs, but I think the point is to make you say, what is reality? Which sometimes you might say is a stupid question, but I would say to you then, oh, really? If what is reality is such a stupid question, then what the fuck just happened in the day area with Joan and Tony and my psycho roommate, who is everybody's new hero now? That was reality. But at the same time, we are old enough to know that Tony's boring reality where he goes to church probably every day, that is also reality. And then people you've never even heard of living their lives in countries whose names you can't even spell, that is also reality. And if there was a God, then he would have to be a super mean, or he wouldn't let it get so bad in my roommate's head, and even he couldn't keep track of so many people. He would go insane. So who is the master of reality? The whole question is wavy and shaky, like the waves coming off of the street in the summer that you see, but you can't really see them, and also like the shape of the words on the cover of the album. That is what I think about when I see it anyway, though Ozzy also has some weird things to say about who is the master of reality, which when I tell you about them, they are going to blow your mind, and you are going to tell Joan, and then maybe you will all turn evil. October 22, 1985. Today they took me to see the doctor. His office is over on the adult unit, and going over there is worse than dying from AIDS. If you don't know, this is what happens when they take us over to see the doctor. At breakfast, the aide says, "Roger, Philip, Charlene, you all see Dr. White today," and then tells us at what time. Then everybody goes off to their classrooms, or for me and the other holdbacks, to the special needs room. Maybe we are not totally awake yet, but if you don't remember that it's therapy time, then you will be pretty confused when they pull you out of the classroom without any warning. That is what happened to me. I was sitting in the classroom doing sentence diagrams, and the aide came in and said, "Roger Painter," and I was like, what did I do wrong? And I went to see her, and she just started walking away, so I followed her. I hope you know that was really weird. I wondered, what would happen if I just said, "Yeah, I'm Roger, what's up?" But you don't want to get on these people's bad side. I know from the other kids telling me, they will totally fuck with you if you are not careful. The aide, her name is Carmen, she took me over to the adult unit. Everybody over there is staring at their shoes. And we walk down the halls, which are the same as the adolescent halls, only somehow they feel different. And we got to the tiniest room. Why do you guys want to take us to a tiny little room and leave us sitting there? I was like, soon they will come to put me in the guillotine. was by myself for a long time. I mean, probably it was only 5 or 10 minutes, but I could have been there for a million years. And what could I do? Leave, I guess, but no, they will restrain you if you try to leave any place without saying, may I please be excused to go to the cafeteria or whatever. So I'm sitting there for so long listening to the sounds in my head and wondering, what if this is what being crazy is like? Because all the adults are crazy, I hope you know. After I was sitting in the room by myself forever, looking at the posters in there, pictures of the ocean and a sunset or something, the doctor came in. He looked so busy. He was trying not to look busy. You could totally tell. And then he says, "My name is Dr. White, and I'm here to help you figure out what's going on with you." And right then, I figured, what's the point? He is just reading out loud from whatever he's supposed to read. So I jumped right in, "My name is Roger. I am here because I tried to kill myself." "Oh, I'm sorry to hear that was going on with you." "Oh, I just wanted to." "Oh, can you talk about the feelings?" Some old stuff everybody says. It made me appreciate you, Gary, because I swear to God, this dude asks me, "Can you talk about the feelings?" and then does not even look at me while I am answering him. I couldn't believe it. I come over to your little cramped up room with huge bummer retirement posters that can only make me think about death and disease and horrible smells, and I sit there by myself in my gown, half freezing, and then finally Dr. White gets there and can't even look at me, asking questions so he can fill out a form on me. I ask you, why? It is a good thing that I can think fast in the mornings, or else I could have screwed myself royally, though, because I was going to start just answering him in Aussie lyrics just to see if he would even notice. Like, "How did you feel?" And I'd be like, "Oh, dude, I was totally past the stars in those fields of ancient void." That is from Into the Void. Or even, "I'm headed off the rails on a crazy train." Just stupid stuff to mess with this old man mind. But then, for just a second, I thought about my roommate, whose name, by the way, is Fritz. How horrible a parent do you have to be to call your kid Fritz? You might as well put a tattoo on his face that says, "Please tease me and beat me up for no reason." Or make him wear a shirt that says that. Poor Fritz. Well, after this whole big episode, they gave him a shot to calm him down, and the next morning, at morning meds, he was like, "Why the fuck do I have all these pills in my cup?" And Peggy said, "Please don't use that language with me. They have changed your meds." See, I told you she was sweet. He said, "What if I don't take them?" And Peggy said, "If you refuse your meds, then they will probably just give you another shot." So he was really mad. You could tell he wanted to cry again. But you could also see that he was starting to understand how it is for us in here. We can either do what they say or they will do it for us, which means do it to us. So he took all his new pills. There were like 5 of them, and now he is Night of the Living Fritz. He can't even walk right. The other kids are trying to help him learn how to hide the pills in his cheek where Peggy can't see and then spit them out later. But it's tricky and dangerous because if they catch you, then you will never get out of here. Me older kids are calling Fritz the Skits. I feel so sad for him. So I thought, fuck, if I say the wrong thing, they will make me take happy pills, and I don't want to be Night of the Living Roger. So I just told him the stuff we all learned to say to make you guys happy. I was feeling mad and sad. I just wanted to escape. This shit is right out of the handouts you give us when we get here. And then, when we vomit it out, you think you are really getting down to the bottom of our problems. I am sorry that I still think this because some of you are my friends now. You, Gary, also Peggy, but you people here are totally fucking stupid sometimes. Today's diary entry will be the test of whether you are telling the truth about respecting my privacy like you swear you do. So, okay, I finished talking to Dr. White, who has not heard a word I said. He is very happy that I gave him exactly the answers he wanted to hear. You can totally tell. And then he sends me back to the classroom, and at lunch, Peggy told me I could have off grounds now and go to the regular classroom. Fuck yeah. I know I said I didn't want to go on a stupid outings, but anything is better than just sitting around on the unit all day. All this got me thinking, How one, Black Sabbath could have gotten me in trouble if I had gone with my instinct at the doctor's, and two, about God. I know you and Joan will be totally overjoyed to know that I even thought about God at all. Well, for your information, when I think about God, I also think about Ozzy. Ha ha ha. Scrunch up your eyes and worry, you big dumbasses. Ozzy talks about God all the time, the same God you guys talk about. The difference is he doesn't have to be all boring about it. So now, after all those stories, it is time to talk more about Master of Reality, finally. But right now, it is dinner, so I will tell you later, alligator. October 23rd, 1985. So because of the retardedness on Monday, I did not get a chance to really keep going with the Black Sabbath story. So it is a very good story, full of valuable lessons for you, Gary. So I hope you are paying attention. Thank you for telling me the PM staff to let me journal in the library, by the way. Now I can use a typewriter. I took typing last summer in summer school, and I am really fast at it. I will staple the pages into my journal for you so that it will not be a big mess. Okay, so after that one day when I borrowed Black Sabbath from Mike, I knew I had to have more because it was so weird. So I asked him what else I should hear. Mike knows a lot about music. He told me the one album you have to hear is Paranoid. So I borrowed that one. It is a great, but a lot of these songs everybody already knows, so it's hard to really feel like they're special, like Iron Man and Paranoid. These are just two classic songs that everybody knows. War Pigs too. So I love the album, and it also had some very scary stuff on it. Fairies wear boots, for example. What is Ozzy talking about? But I still wanted more. And then one Saturday, I got my allowance, which is $5 now, and I went to Rhino Records, where they have used tapes, which are cheaper than albums. They are behind the counter, and when you look at them, you are sort of hidden from everybody, so you can just take your time. And I looked and looked, and they had lots of stuff I wanted, and then there it was, Black Sabbath, Master of Reality. This is the album they made after Paranoid, and in my theory, it is like Black Sabbath, the real thing. Because when a band makes their first album, they're like a guy in a room trying to find the light switch. That can be great, but it's always later that they get good. Then on their second, they write all these amazing songs, but they are still figuring out what they have to say, and maybe they can't even believe that they get to do this, so they still try to make everybody like them. Then on the third one, they have all been working together for a long time, and they really know what to do. Plus, in Black Sabbath by this time, they are all rich, so they can do whatever they want. So you are really hearing what's going on in their heads for real. So I bought it for $2 and I brought it home and I connected my good headphones to the tape player. I had to find a special connector cord to do it. Smarter than you think. And I listened to it all by myself with no distractions, and starting tomorrow I will tell you all about this album, which I sing to myself under the blankets, which is probably driving my roommate crazy. But you gotta do what you gotta do. And when you hear how important it is to me, I am going to ask you. I will just tell you now to please give me back my tapes and my Walkman so I can listen to my music, please. What else happened today? I got a letter from my ex-girlfriend. It was nice. And we played ping pong after dinner in the day area, and that was fun. You can get real good at ping pong in here. And at Evening Meds, they called me up and said now I get one pill a day at night. I don't know what I did to deserve that, but it's only one pill, and I didn't really feel much after I took it, so I'm trying to stick with the program because I want to get out of here fair and square. October 24, 1985. I guess I better just get the first song out of the way because you are going to find out about it anyway. I wish Black Sabbath had put this song at the end of the album so I could talk about it later. I could probably just save it for after some of the other songs, but I don't want you to think I'm trying to fool you. Unlike you people, I have a policy that I always tell the truth first, and then if people don't like it, well then at least I can say that I was honest. So the first song on Master of Reality is called Sweet Leaf. Since you have my tapes, you should just put it on right now. I'm serious. Do it. The nurses have them, they will give them to you, which makes me mad just to think about it, but this is a science experiment, so I have got to just put my feelings off to one side. So go get my tapes now and pick out Master of Reality. If you can't figure out which one that is, then you are the dumbest person on earth. Okay, now make sure it is rewound to side A and press play. I know you have a ghetto blaster because the PTs use it for relaxation therapy. Did you know they just go into your office and take your boombox for their stupid yoga class? They do. Okay, is it all around? Are you listening? You probably noticed that the first sound was a person coughing real loud. He goes like, "Caw." Only then it sounds like the record is skipping, but this is a tape and tapes can't skip. They can melt though if you put them in the microwave. I know because that is what we did with my sister's Jesse Johnson tape, which I feel bad about now, but you have to admit it was funny. And then you notice that the skipping cough starts on the left side of the stereo and moves over to the right side. It makes you feel like the person who is coughing is sort of flying through the air past you. I think that the reason they did this is they want to sort of put your head in a weird space super quick so that you will be kind of dizzy when the song starts, so that it will hit you even harder. And what did you hear after the coughing? Immediately after, with no stopping. That's right, Gary, the therapist, whose brains are probably blown all over the inside of his office right now. You heard a guitar riff that comes from a volcano under the ocean. It is a super simple riff, and anyone can play it. I could even show you how to play it, and I am not really that good on guitar. It is a 5-chord riff, and it only takes 8 beats to play the whole thing. But some of the hardest things in the world are also very simple, like, for example, a sword or even a big rock. You might say that laser beams are more destructive than big rocks, but for a laser beam to hurt you, there has to be a guy who knows how to operate it. And he has to be aiming it at you, or you have to get in the way of the laser when he is pointing it at somebody else. Same with the bombs. But with a big rock, you could just be walking down the street, doop-de-doo, whistling a happy little tune, and some random crazy dude could chuck one at you from his porch because he woke up in a bad mood or he doesn't like your attitude. Then you would say, "A big rock seriously hurts. Give me a guy with a laser beam any day." At least I would know where I stand. This is really why Black Sabbath is my favorite band. They are not trying to show off all the stuff they can do, even though I am pretty sure they could be as complicated as they want to be. They just put all their energy into this one riff and let it loose like an avalanche. Dun, 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 dun. Fuck, I wish I was in your office listening to it with you right now. That would be the best therapy session, and I would actually make me feel good for once. Anyway, I can't put it off forever, so what happens next is Ozzy starts singing. He has a voice like a weed whacker, some say, but I say it would have to be a custom weed whacker because it doesn't sound like anybody else's. And also, it sounds like you know him. Like, when Robert Plant is singing for Led Zeppelin, you can't really think about whether you're ever going to see that guy at the arcade and play doubles on Galaga with him, but Ozzy, he sounds like the guy who changes your quarters at the arcade and you wonder, is that this guy's whole job? Is he married? Does his wife say, "Did you have a good day at the arcade today?" I don't know if I'm telling this right, but I will try again later maybe. But anyway, this is why Ozzy is great, or part of it anyway, is that he sounds like he could be your friend, which probably actually makes it kind of worse for me right now because then he starts singing about pot, marijuana. Yes, Sweet Leaf is a song about pot. You would have to be stupid not to notice it. The words are, "All right now, won't you listen? When I first met you, I didn't realize. I can't forget you or your surprise." Here you might still think he was talking about a person. It's like those riddles in The Hobbit that Gollum and Bilbo tell each other, where there is no question, but you have to figure out who the person is that's talking. Only then he sings, "You introduced me to my mind and left me watching you and your kind." So now, if you had not already been told by me that the song is about, you might be saying, what is he talking about? My friend Mike had a great way of explaining this line. He said, I picture this pipe, and Ozzy is holding it, and it's like the cherry burning in the pipe is saying, "Mind, this is Ozzy. Ozzy, meet your mind." Well, I thought it was funny anyway. Now we started the second verse. "I love you. Oh, you know it. My life was empty, forever on a down, until you took me, showed me around. My life is free now. My life is clear. I love you, sweet leaf, though you can't hear." I have to say, it sounds like Ozzy didn't have the best ideas for the whole second verse, but when you hear the music, it's like, who really cares? There is an awesome guitar solo now. After that, come on now, try it out. Straight people don't know what you're about. They put you down and shut you out. You gave to me a new belief today, and soon the world will love you, Sweet Leaf, baby. It's weird when Ozzy says baby because, one, that's not really something Ozzy says a lot, and second, because usually you would only say that in a love song. It's sort of confusing, and so is the whole song because even though it's totally obvious that he is singing about pot and trying to tell you that it's all great, the only thing he really says about it is that it introduced him to his mind. And what does that even mean? When I smoke out, it's like the opposite. Like my mind is going very far away. And then when I come down, that's when I get introduced to my mind again. Maybe that is what he means. To be honest, I don't even know why Sweet Leaf is on this album because it does not really belong. Soon, when I talk about the other songs on the album, if you go back to Sweet Leaf, you will have to agree. On the album Paranoid, or even on that first album, all the songs seem to go together. All the things Ozzy is singing about are like pieces of the same puzzle. But Sweet Leaf is just the song about how Ozzy really likes weed. My theory is there is no way they could keep the guitar riff hidden from the world. Tony Iommi wrote it and gave it to Ozzy, and Ozzy was maybe high that day, so he wrote about what was going on in his mind, and the whole band was like, "That's what it is then." If I was Ozzy, I think I would have wrote the words differently and maybe made a song about living naked in a cave or being afraid that the house is haunted. But I am not Ozzy, so I have to respect his decision. October 25, 1985. Today I will still mainly be talking about Sweet Leaf. I am pretty sure you don't want to give me back my tapes ever now that you know what this song is about. So I want to tell you what the song means to me. This is different from what the song is really about. There is so much more to it. You know that I was straight with you about how it is a song about pot and only the good side of pot. It is a song that says, get stoned, people. I can't lie about that. But there is the music too, the sound. I talked about this a little yesterday, but it's the part you have to understand to really get it. Because the get stoned part, really I have to admit that it's pretty stupid. Even if you like to get high, what is the point? It's like, good job, Ozzy, you get high. Of course you do. You're rich and nobody can tell you what to do. We would all get stoned every day if we were you. Even Gary would. I bet you love to eat apples too, but you did not write a song called Sweet Apples. So there is something kind of stupid, but that's also kind of cool because it's like Ozzy saying, I'm a chump like all of you. Sometimes I just write dumb stuff that comes off the top of my head, which is really great. Think about it. But this is the thing about you guys and music here. You think that all we are doing when we listen to our music is either looking at the words like they were a Bible for us or looking at pictures of the singers like they were Jesus. It is not like that at all. When you guys talk like that, that's how we know that you are stupid and growing old has made you crazy because music is like a whole world and there are words and pictures and sounds and textures and smells probably. Okay, I didn't actually mean that. I just got carried away. Albums do have a special smell though. Old ones smell different from new ones. Anyway, you gotta know what I mean about this. It's like when you sing Row, Row, Row Your Boat, do you really only focus on the boat and rowing it and think, wow, this is a song about some guys rowing a boat. Fucking awesome. No, of course not. Only if you were totally weird do you think like that. When you are singing, you hear the song, the part that is more than the words, and is also the feeling of just the notes in the air, especially if you were singing it in a round with a bunch of other people. We used to do that in my kindergarten. You hear a mood which is way higher, not high like that, come on, than the words. It is sort of always floating above the words, and that is why bands like the Beatles can be popular everywhere, even where people do not speak English. Where to them the Beatles probably sound like trained monkeys trying to talk. Well, okay, now that you got that check, it out. In Sweet Leaf, if you can't hear the mood that just the guitar and the bass and the drums make without anything to do with weed, then you are prejudiced or you are not listening. Imagine that you are a man from space and you don't speak English and you have never heard of weed and you landed in California and the first person you meet up with took you to his house and said, hey, check out this band, and then he played you Sweet Leaf. In my opinion, the man from space would hear that song, just the crunchy guitar sound and those bass notes. Geezer Butler is the best bassist. It sounds like his strings are made from lime jello salad, and he would start banging his head. Because the riff on Sweet Leaf, that is something anybody could understand. Anybody! It doesn't really have anything to do with what Ozzy is singing about. The lyrics, that is just what Ozzy thinks of when he feels this groove. But it doesn't have to mean that to everybody, and it means more no matter what, because it's like a physical thing. So when I told you yesterday that I don't know how Sweet Leaf fits on Master of Reality, I think now I understand. It's there because the mood is right, even if the words are weird, and the mood comes first. This whole album is just about that mood, that feeling. This is complicated to explain, but I know you must understand what I mean. I'm not trying to say the song is not about pot, or even try to say that I don't smoke pot, because I do, and that's not why I love Sweet Leaf. You should give me and all of us more credit than that, and I hope when we have therapy later today, you have already read this so we can talk about it. October 26, 1985. Fuck you, Gary, you fucking asshole. Just when I think I can trust you and that you maybe understand, it turns out you are the same as them all. I asked the Saturday staff today, did Gary say if I can have my tapes? And they said, there's nothing here about it. What do they even mean? At the same time, I know everybody here is stupid, that they could have it wrong, so I hope I see you Monday because staff always gets things wrong. For example, when Saturday staff said, there's nothing here about it, they weren't even looking at anything except their clipboards. Even I know they should look at their chart if they want to know anything. So I'm confused and sad and very angry because I thought after therapy yesterday, you would give me back my stuff for sure. You can see that I am following the rules around here. I write in my journal probably 100 times more than anybody else, and I tell you the real story about what is going on in the unit. I don't assume you are all stupid. I try to tell you the real deal. I am nice to the other kids, and I try to help people when they are having a hard time. There is no point in even talking to you about my feelings if you don't really care, though. So I will just torture you with some more Black Sabbath. Check it out now. I know you have to read it because it is your job. I hope you choke on it. This is my Black Sabbath collection, which I know by heart. About half of them are tapes, but I have the albums of Never Say Die and Paranoid because I could get them used and they were cheaper than tapes. Black Sabbath, Master of Reality, Paranoid, Sabbath, Bloody Sabbath, Never Say Die, Heaven and Hell, Born Again. A note about Black Sabbath's self-titled album. Like I told you before, these actually belong to my friend Mike. If something happens to me in here, please make sure that Mike gets his records back. A note about Heaven and Hell. This is after Ozzy left. A note about Born Again. This is the newest one. When I had a girlfriend, she got it for me for my birthday. She gave it to me when we met at the benches between second and third period. It made that the best birthday ever. Because my Walkman was in my locker, we can't carry our Walkmans around with us or they will take them away and you won't get them back for a month. So she gave me the tape. It was wrapped with a ribbon and I opened it and I was so excited and I put it in my backpack and then I had to walk around the whole rest of the day until lunch thinking about how great my girlfriend was and how excited I was. It was like the tape was burning through my backpack, like it was glowing. So when it was finally lunchtime after Spanish 2, I went to my locker to get my Walkman and then booked ass across the football field to the benches and sat there listening. Now a lot of people say the Black Sabbath is completely over because Ozzy has a new band, the Blizzard of Oz, and they have songs like Crazy Train and Flying High Again, and some of the songs are really good and some are totally stupid. Mr. Crowley, I don't know, those are just two. Some people might disagree about these. I think the Blizzard of Oz is fine, and I have the first 2 tapes, but it doesn't seem as special as the old band to me. Blizzard has Ozzy, so it's awesome, but it's also confusing because you can't tell if it's maybe supposed to be a joke. He's wearing these capes on the cover. If you ever see the cover of Sabbath, Bloody Sabbath, or Technical Ecstasy, or really any of Black Sabbath's album covers, you know it's got to be cool. Even that one Sabotage gives off a vibe where you know whether you like it or not. They are in costumes on that one, even a cape I think, but it's very strange and cool. When I look at the solo Ozzy covers though, I'm not sure whether he's talking to me or to somebody else. Do you know what I mean? I don't know if you can understand this, but all the old Black Sabbath albums, I feel like they were made for me. Or not for me, but like they were always just waiting for a guy like me to come along and find them. It's weird. Not like with that Ozzy solo. Anyways, my ex-girlfriend Karen knew this was how I felt, that Black Sabbath is special. So for my birthday present, she bought me the new Black Sabbath, and the cover is just like I was saying. It's like a secret code for people like me. It's a red infant baby with yellow horns and yellow fingernails, and he is showing his fangs. He is born again. To me, this is saying to all the people who hate Black Sabbath, fine. If this is how you are going to talk about us, then how do you like this evil devil baby? Why can't he be born again too, like all of you? But if you listen to the music, the picture you get is a lot bigger. By the way, a girl I know here named Star says that the new singer from Black Sabbath is now some Christian guy named Jeff. But I want the world to know that I will never accept that band as Black Sabbath if this happens. And I will always call the new band Jeff Sabbath. Why does everything good have to not just stop being good, but totally turn to shit? Why? But before Christian Jeff, who Star says was in Jesus Christ Superstar, the singer on Born Again was this guy named Ian Gillan. He replaced Ozzy. Of course, we know that no one can ever replace Ozzy, but Ian Gillan was the singer from Deep Purple, who, as everyone knows, did that song Smoke on the Water, which is the first song everybody learns to play on guitar. He is a very different singer from Ozzy, and if you understand how he is different, then you can also understand what makes Ozzy the taster's choice. Okay, that is totally a stupid thing to say, but I kind of mean it. Because Ian Gillan is much bigger singer than Ozzy Osbourne. Ozzy Osbourne can only sing about half of the notes that Ian Gillan can sing, and also Ian Gillan can make his voice shake like an opera singer. He sounds like he took singing lessons, and also listened to all the important old bands like Eric Clapton. He is a professional. Well, I guess Ozzy is also a pro by now, but he's been singing for as long as I've been alive. But no matter how many songs he sings, Ozzy always sounds just like they grabbed him off the street and stuck him in front of the microphone. And then either they handed him a piece of paper with some lyrics on it, or he already had something written on his hand or something. Or maybe like he was asleep or watching some cool movie in another room, and then they ran in and said, "Hey Ozzy, it's almost time for you to sing." So he just started getting his thoughts together and then ran in and sang along with the band. No matter what he's singing, Ozzy sounds like he was going to sing that way. Even if there was nobody listening, even if everybody hated it, even if nobody was even going to put his record in the stores, he isn't Mr. Rockstar. He is just the singer in a band called Black Sabbath. He sounds just like he loves listening to the band play, like he's super psyched just to be doing it, so he tries to fit in, not to be the best, just to be the guy who's doing his job. I look up to Ozzy. You fuckers send these dumbasses to talk to us or make us go to therapy and try to make us think that we need to be like you, but we don't want to be anything else besides what we already are. Some kids say that we are the losers, but I don't like the way that feels. It's not about losing or winning, is what I want to say. It's just being who you want to be, even if you are a poor kid making loud music about being unhappy. Why can't you people understand this? Are your brains broken or something? But then again, in a way, this doesn't even matter because Black Sabbath is not just Ozzy, it is also Bill Ward and Tony Iommi and Geezer Butler. Anybody who says Sabbath without Ozzy can't rock needs to listen to Born Again and just quit being a dick. Some of the guitar solos on it are awesome, and there is an instrumental song called Stonehenge, which reminded me of the two instrumental songs on Master of Reality, which are Embryo and Orchid. Some people hate them, but those people should die. I have to sleep now. October 27, 1985. They made me stop yesterday because I kicked a chair over while I was typing, and I guess I was singing too loud. I don't know why they care how loud I sing when I am in that room all alone, but after I kicked the chair, I knew they would just all come and say, "What's going on in here?" So I calmed down and tried to pretend I didn't know what the noise was, but they didn't believe me, so they said, "That's enough." It was more like just a leg twitch from the excitement, but one thing I have learned is that if you ever try to explain yourself to staff, you are going to lose. So I just said, "Nothing, sorry, I'm done anyway." And I did not finish what I was going to say about Born Again. So I will continue the story of Born Again today because it is my second favorite. I can hear you saying if you are smart.
Wait, how can you say that?
Master is from when they still had Ozzy, but Born Again just came out 6 months ago. How can that even be true? But just sit back while I blow your mind. Here is the story. Everybody knows that Paranoid is the most famous Black Sabbath album. Even cheerleaders like Paranoid. If you do not like Paranoid, it is probably because you are worried about Satanism. Or maybe you just don't like good music. But if you like good music, you have to like Paranoid. Period. That is just how it is. However, that is also why Paranoid can never be my favorite Black Sabbath album. It's like, any day now I expect to hear it at Pizza Hut or something. But will I ever go to Pizza Hut and order a sausage, bell peppers, and anchovies pizza, my favorite, and be sitting there kicking back and then suddenly hear Children of the Grave? Fat chance, man. Mike says it doesn't matter which one is the one everyone likes, it just matters which one is the best one. I feel like he is right in some ways, but when something is a secret or half a secret or hidden in some way, it becomes cooler for me. And that is why Born Again is totally special and awesome. Did you ever hear a saying, hide in plain sight? It is from the world of ninjas. It means you can be like the Invisible Man or better and more powerful because it's not that you are really invisible. It's just your power of psyching everybody out. Hell yeah! The day my girlfriend bought me Born Again, I went across the field at lunch with my Walkman and my new tape, and I sat there listening to this album I had never heard before. And I knew nobody else even knew there was a new Black Sabbath album, because hardly anybody at my school cares about Black Sabbath. So there I am listening to an album that is like a secret message from another world with a totally messed up cover, and songs like Zero the Hero, Trashed, and Disturbing the Priest. It made me want to disturb a priest. I don't really know any priests though. Too bad. Just kidding. My point is, the album is really good. The guitar playing is the best I have heard on a Black Sabbath album in a long time, and the singing is weird because there is a lot of echo, and the drums echo too. Even the guitar solos echo. Maybe their new recording studio is a cave. Or maybe the point is, when you listen to Born Again, you are going into a cave for a while because nobody else is listening with you. That is what I take from it. So it's like me and the band are in a hidden cave and they are telling me horror stories, and if I even tried to tell someone about it, there is no way they could understand because they don't even know there is a cave. This is very different from Master of Reality, which is partly why my number 2 album is Born Again, because it shows that the band has so many different talents. Master of Reality is the opposite of the cave. It is the band on top of a mountain north of town, like Mount Baldy is from my town, only closer. Like, imagine that there's a town that's only 20 houses with families, and then right there smashed up against it, there's that mountain that's about 3 stories high, and Black Sabbath is on top of it in black and purple robes, and they are saying, "We are the masters of reality. This is your reality." And telling everybody the truth about smoking pot and the afterlife and war and loneliness. New Black Sabbath is more about stories that you can hear, but Ozzy on Master is like a preacher, a totally crazy preacher, and nobody is listening, so it just makes him more insane. Somebody has already disturbed that priest. It gets me all excited. I wish I had somebody to talk to about it who could understand. I hope you know that I am telling you this stuff because it helps me, and it would help me even more to hear my music. I just want you to know. October 28, 1985. Last night I counted the days I have been here, and it was 17 days, and I knew then that you are never going to let me leave. 17 days! Everybody at school probably thinks I must have been sent to state by now, or that I am dead. I am dead. And I miss my friends and I am not feeling any better, and my family visits, but it's like talking to strangers and there is no way to explain to them this whole thing. Everything that is in my head right now. I was so much better before I came here. Hospitals are the opposite of help for me. Sometimes I know you want to help, but your whole system can't help me at all. So now I will tell you what I did, and I know they will send me away when I tell you, but why should I fucking care? I broke into the nurse's station last night. It was Fritz who gave me the idea. He said the NOC staff goes on smoke break every hour. He knows from the night he spent tied up in the happy room. So after lights out, I wrote about Born Again for a while, and then I heard the outside doors open and click shut, and I knew. Holy fuck, we are alone on the unit. To catch a thief! The medication window was open, so it wasn't even a big deal. I just crawled over the counter and went to my cubby and took my Walkman and only one tape, and then I piled the other tapes up so it would look like the cubby was still full. I wish they did not call them cubbies, like we are in daycare or something. Then I ninja'd back to my room and got into bed. Fritz was still awake, and he gave me a look like, You fucking did it. And I thought about how Fritz the Skits knows more about me than my doctors and my therapists. Only Peggy on staff seems to look at me like she understands, but she is just a nurse. She can't really do anything. Some of the other kids ask her to let us out, but that's not her choice. That's yours. She can only do what you tell her anyway. I listened to Master of Reality all night. So sweet. I have to say that you are not really even alive unless you have done that. Sat in the dark with a tape you love and that other people do not understand and just kicked back with it. And I had so many thoughts that I wanted to tell you because I thought if I could really show you how it felt to be listening to that music by myself in the dark, totally illegal, you would know what it is like in my heart. Especially Lord of this World, because it starts with just a one-string riff, which late at night, everybody asleep, sounds like the world being born or something. It only lasts for a second, but it's this one note just sitting there. Do you even know what I mean when I got to that point and it was like I was flying so high above your world and I was so free. Nobody to lock me up in some place and tell me stuff that they know isn't even true all day. Nobody lying with a big smile on, just that sound. And then the words came in. Think you know, but you are never quite sure. Well, that just got me thinking about everything. How the day I came here I had this reality I thought was one way, my world, but then by the end of the day, it turned out I didn't even know shit. So I could really see where Ozzy was coming from with that line. And then Bill Ward, the drummer, in the faster parts, just so focused. It's like he is the secret underdog weapon of the band, carrying everybody around on his back. I was so into those drums in the dark. Dark, dark, dark. The clink, clink, clink sounds in the part where there's no singing, and then when he goes apeshit on the cymbals during the guitar solo, I wished I had a phone so I could call you and make you sit there in the dark with me listening, just listening in a way you have probably never listened before. Lord of this World would totally scare you though, because I know you don't like to think about dying and getting punished for the bad things you did. But even if you didn't like it, you would feel it. That is the point. Why would this song scare you? Why does it scare even me sometimes? Okay, here's the deal. This song is being sung by the devil. Not that Ozzy is the devil, we all know that is a totally stupid thing to say. But he is pretending to be the devil here, and he is singing to people who worship the devil and telling them that they're on the wrong track. Your world was made for you by someone above, but you chose evil ways instead of love. You made me master of the world where you exist. The soul I took from you was not even missed. Who else could that be? Only Satan. Backwards Led Zeppelin says, I sing because I live with Satan. But those guys are pussies, sorry, because Ozzy just says flat out, you worship me and I am the devil. But he also says you shouldn't worship me. That is like the whole point of the song, like pretty much every other song on the album. You turn to me in all your worldly greed and pride, but will you turn to me when it's your turn to die? Yeah! Ozzy always says yeah when he gets to totally intense part of the song. He does this still today in his solo stuff. When Ozzy says yeah, it's like hallelujah for Ozzy fans. Or the part of church where the priest says, let us pray. It's like, yeah! Then you know where you are and who you are and what's going on. And you feel totally comfortable. And you know your friends who understand you. And that's where I was last night. And I don't care what happens now. I don't even care. October 29, 1985. Why do you guys take a word like special and ruin it? You ruin everything. It's like you think that is your job or something. When the aide came to the classroom to say, Roger, you have special therapy today, I knew and everybody knew she didn't mean special in a good way. No, everybody in the classroom knew I must have fucked up. They don't call us out of class to say, oh, Roger, you're doing such a good job. We just thought we would take a minute out of your day to say thumbs up. Fat chance of that. I remember there was that one kid I barely even knew who got called out of class. He sort of looked back at the class like, goodbye, everybody, as he walked out, and then we never saw him again. If he went home, well, I doubt it, because when we go home, there is always a big meeting where everybody says goodbye and shares their feelings. That guy was just gone all of a sudden. Nobody got to tell him, hey, I liked you, or good luck. Fucked up. But when they called me in, I already knew. You were going to go back on your word and start talking about my tapes and breaking into the nurse's station. Back when you first said, you can write whatever you want in your journal. You can't get in trouble for what you write. I knew there was no way you really meant it. What I didn't know is how full of shit you are, Gary. To spend all this time pretending you are my friend, and then when I do something that doesn't even hurt anybody and helps me, something that lets me have the first good feelings I have had in a month, will you just open up the resident policy book? I am looking at it right now, since it is the only thing I have to read here in my room, where they are keeping me like jail. If a resident's actions place the resident or others in immediate danger, the resident will return to day 1 status. What kind of sense does that make? For starters, I did not put anybody in danger. I went into the nurse's station and got my tapes. Explain to me how that could hurt anybody. You can't explain that because it couldn't hurt anybody. No way. If you think about it, that was actually me taking me out of danger. Because without music, I want to die every day. And a person who is feeling like that, he stops caring whether he hurts anybody else in this epic quest for death. Some of this is so obvious, it's not even funny. You should hire me to work at your stupid place because I know how to actually help people instead of making them depressed. Also, second off, when I break a rule, why should I have to go back to wearing a hospital robe and slippers and just stay in my room like this? What good does that do? What is the point? What planet are you guys from? If you make a mistake in your job, which you do every day when you treat us so bad, do they send you back to your first day of school or make you wear a robe and slippers? Of course they don't. You would quit this job if they treated you like that, and you would say, "Fuck you, go to hell," before you left. October 30, 1985. Gary, you can read this or not read this. I don't even give a shit anymore.
I'm as much talking to myself as to you.
Or it's like I'm talking to the version of you in my head who is actually listening to me. Maybe I just made that version of Gary up. And the real Gary is kind of an asshole, I'm sorry to say. Some people say, "I'm sorry to say," when they mean, I am actually totally stoked to tell you this, but here, let me pretend that I am sorry. That way I can be even more stoked that you suck. But Gary, that is not how I mean it. I don't have anybody to talk to about the stuff that's in my head now. The punks have jackets that say FTW. That means fuck the world. That is how I feel now. All the staff are acting funny to me too. If something is up, you should tell me. It's not like I can't tell something is weird, and it sucks to not know. October 31, 1985. So today is Halloween, and I have now been here for 20 days. Today, you already know what I am going to say, but I will say it anyhow. Today would be a great day to listen to Black Sabbath, but the world is trying to make Halloween something dumb and boring instead of the cool holiday it really could be. Parents and teachers think that kids like Halloween because of all the candy, but this is just one more example of how something goes haggard inside the brain of a person the second he turns into an adult. I mean, okay, who doesn't like candy? Yes, there is that part. There is candy also on Christmas and Easter and Valentine's Day, though. And you know that there aren't any kids who throw any Easter parties. If there are, they get beat up. Christmas parties are for families. Valentine's Day parties are for fags, obviously. That leaves Halloween, which belongs to fucked up kids and their friends, and to people who are the friends of fucked up kids. Not you, obviously. People like Ozzy Osbourne and Geezer Butler are our friends because they write songs and let us know they have not forgotten what it was like. When they sing, they don't say dumb shit, or sometimes they do, but it's the kind of dumb shit we are thinking about, so it's not dumb like stupid. So this is the kind of music that is perfect for a holiday like Halloween, which parents hate because they believe all kinds of stupid things like razor blades and apples, or LSD on non-chocolatey Tootsie Rolls. I totally loved that one. That was last year. We had a very outstanding lecture from the vice principal on November 1st where he told us to throw away all lime, vanilla, and cherry Tootsie Rolls because they were tainted. My friend Jeff K thought it was so funny he made a point of eating as many lime Tootsie Rolls as he could in one mouthful. Sick and awesome. Anyhow, as you can see, there is something about the spirit of Halloween that was just made for people like me. People who like things that are cool, but also like things that are goofy, and who just trip out on the stuff that freaks people out like devils or whatever. The most perfect Halloween song of all time is Orchid from Master of Reality. Even though this song does not have any words, just guitars, it is so damn wicked. Of course, I am spending my Halloween in my room in a robe and slippers, just going crazy and feeling sorry for myself. If you think this is going to teach me a lesson, you are right. The lesson is that you are not my friend, and the lesson is that you can't be trusted. What a great Halloween you are giving to me, to learn such a happy lesson. November 1, 1985. I only have a minute to write. I am packing my stuff and crying. The nurses told me they are sending me to state and that I will probably be there until I am 18. They said, "You said I am not benefiting from the program." Gary, I have been doing my best. I am sorry I broke into the nurses station. I don't want to spend the rest of my life in places like this. I am scared to go to state. You don't give a fucking shit how I feel, so fuck you. You have ruined my life. Section 2, October 1, 1995. Dear Gary, you probably don't remember me, but my name is Roger, and I was a patient of yours at Santa Fe Springs Psychiatric back in the 80s. If it helps you remember, I kept a diary where I mainly talked about Black Sabbath. I am guessing I was the only kid ever to talk so much about Black Sabbath, though I was probably not the only kid to waste a lot of his time and energy trying to get his music back. Well, last month I had to move out of my place because my girlfriend and I were fighting a lot. And when I was going through my stuff to figure out what to throw away and what to keep, I found that old diary. A lot of that time is a blur for me now, but all the memories came back soon enough. I felt really sad for myself reading that whole thing, and sad for anybody who ever had anything to do with Santa Fe Springs Psychiatric. I wish I could look back on that time and say that it helped me. I wish I was writing to say, "Gary, I know I complained a lot at the time, but really I see now how you were only acting in my best interest." But I can't say that, because I don't think it's true. Although I'm not writing to read you the riot act or anything, I think you were probably doing the best you could. I hope so. Instead, I am writing for reasons that will probably seem strange to you, but I hope that you will let me soak up a little of your time, because this feels important to me. The box that I got out of the garage that had the old diary in it had lots of other stuff from that whole period of my life. Letters from old girlfriends, notebooks, rock magazines, my transfer papers from Santa Fe Psychiatric to the state hospital. I don't think I'd touched this box since I first got my own place after I turned 18. Life kind of drew a pretty firm line between youth and adulthood for me. On my 18th birthday, they told me they couldn't hold me at state anymore, and a month after moving home, I knew I couldn't live with my parents either. I put all my stuff in boxes, and my family gave me enough money to make first and last and security deposit on a place in Pomona next to the train tracks. It's not as bad as it sounds, and when I got there, I put most of my boxes of stuff in the closets or under the bed, and then life kind of started for me. As you probably can guess, I have not had the easiest time of it. For a long time, I was angry that I had spent the best of my teenage years in hospitals surrounded by people who were as messed up as I was. How was I supposed to learn how to act in an environment like that? From other people who didn't know how to act? From you? If I really got down to it, I would probably find that I am still angry. Reading this paragraph back to myself, I sure sound like it. But I didn't really have time to think about whether I was angry or not, or whether my anger was eating me up after I got out of state. For several years, I had to work 2 jobs to make rent. Eventually, I got good enough at one job that they made me manager of the restaurant, which didn't make me rich or anything, but was enough of a raise that I didn't have to do telemarketing in the evenings anymore. I went to a community college at night and got an associate's degree in management. During the years when I was telemarketing, I used to imagine that I had actually talked to you without either of us knowing it. I was dialing numbers from a sequence, all cold calls, so I never knew who I was talking to unless they told me their names. And most of the time, they didn't. Your mind wanders a lot, making calls like these. I wondered sometimes, what if this guy on the line is Gary? Would I know his voice over the phone? What if I find out I'm talking to Gary? Do I have anything to say to him? If I do, what is it? Over time, these questions began to nag at me. I stressed out about it. I wondered, what if you knew for sure that you were talking to that guy who read your diary every day? That guy who knew who you were, but still sent you to state? Would you even identify yourself to him? I think if I'd stayed in telemarketing, the whole internal drama might have driven me crazy eventually, but I got promoted to manager before that happened, so who knows? After that, time passed, and I thought less about the 2 years I'd spent in hospitals and more about my present. I kept busy, I got a decent place and a girlfriend, and we lived together for a long time, and that brings us up to the present date, and to why I'm writing. In the same box as my SFS Psych Diary, I found my cassette copy of Black Sabbath's Master of Reality. It made me smile and then cry to see it. I still listen to rock music a lot, but I hadn't thought about Ozzy in a while. Lots of things have happened in music since those days, but the album held such a huge place in my heart, both because I loved it and because, as my old diary so loudly indicates, I wanted it so badly in my time of need. Even when I couldn't hear it, it was all I wanted to talk about. I still think you ought to have given it to me, and I don't think you were listening when I tried to explain the album to you. But that is partially my fault too. My explanations were not always coherent. I threw Master of Reality into the tape deck in my new apartment tonight, and when I had finished crying, I felt the desire to tell you about my feelings in listening to it. This is going to take a few days. I would like to hear back from you, and it would be nice to hear you say that you would do some things differently if you had to do them over again. But I am realistic. I am an adult now. I do think I deserve your time. I spent most of my 16th year and all of my 17th locked in a state hospital because of a decision you made about my future. I think it is fair to ask that you let me speak to you a while about myself. October 2, 1995. The first thing that I thought about the album after I had finished listening to it was that it's pretty short for an album. Barely half an hour. Because I still have so much anger about my time in hospitals, I couldn't help thinking about it in this way. All I wanted from Gary was half an hour's worth of good music to enjoy. I will tell you the truth, it pretty much ruined my day when I thought this. You know how sometimes some small thing can stick in your brain until no matter how small it is, it seems like the biggest thing in the world? Like, if your dad wouldn't let you have dessert one day unless you ate all of your vegetables, but the vegetables were Brussels sprouts, and they made you gag, but you didn't even know the word for gag, so you let them get cold, but then everybody started eating dessert, and so you tried to eat them, but they were just so disgusting that you did gag, and then that made the dessert look even better since you knew you couldn't have any? That was a true story, by the way, about me. It's just one thing that happened on one day and nobody cares, but I will always remember it. Master of Reality is like that for me now. Just looking at the words on the cover, I could feel myself getting younger and angrier. Or maybe I could feel the young, angry person I really am and will always be rising up and taking over, Incredible Hulk style. I don't know. I will probably never know. But the album, not just the music on it, but everything it contains both in itself and for me personally, had a powerful effect on me while I got it out of the box. I stared at the cassette case for a while, the colors have bleached out a little, and the whole thing seems so small. But when I put this tiny, unimportant thing into my home stereo, it had all the power of an atom splitting open. So many memories, so many of them that you couldn't understand and wouldn't, no matter how hard I try to make you. The day they brought me to SFS, the feeling when we transferred from the 10 to the 57 to the 60, knowing that that wasn't the way to go where we were supposed to be going, the panic setting in, knowing something was wrong, the guards at the gate, the nurse's assistant handing me that awful robe and putting me in an empty room and telling me to change clothes. The friends I made, most of their names lost to me now, the rage every day, the helpless feeling, that terrible food, the pointless therapy sessions, the ping pong table, lying awake in my bed at night listening to music inside of my head because that was the only way I could get it, humming to myself through my teeth until it was almost as good as the real thing, possibly better. Trapped in that place, I was forced to find somewhere inside my head where I could go and hide. It's the second song on the album, After Forever, that got its hook in my chest hardest last night. This was a song I always wanted to tell you about in my old diary. It was my ace in the hole. I used to think about it all the time. I had big plans for it. I remember thinking to myself, when I put this After Forever card on the table, Gary is going to have to admit I'm right, and that I've been right all along. It would have been a moment of triumph because it was the one song I felt certain that I was right about. What's more, since nobody ever bothered listening to the music I liked to see whether it was actually as bad as they assumed it was, I'd have had that element of surprise on my side. But because it was my big finishing move, I was saving it till the end, and then the end came abruptly. And so you never heard. This is what After Forever says to anybody who listens to it. Come on, everybody. Just let Jesus Christ into your life. That is 100% what this song is about. Ozzy is preoccupied thinking about how sorry all of the atheists and Satanists in the world are going to feel when one day they wake up in hell. That's really all there is to it. It used to drive me insane. As uptight as you and your whole system are, Ozzy's message was closer to your side of things than to the chaos that so many of us on this unit embraced and craved and held as a sort of sacred state. If we could have forced you to listen, you would have asked us if we really understood what the songs were about, and if we knew what it was we were hearing. We would have told you then to go fuck off and die. This would have resembled what they call dialogue in management training classes. No such luck. Musically, the song's like a downer version of a lot of the stuff that was around at the time. Foghat, Jeff Beck, Robin Trower, whatever. Hard blues rock. But the downer part is really important because to me it always felt like Black Sabbath understood. No matter how positive your message is, there's going to be something dark about it at the bottom. Something working against the good, even in the goodness. And as if all messages were useless and all messengers knew it. But the whole process of people trying to communicate with each other just keeps on going because it doesn't know how to stop. Ozzy raves and raves in his droning voice about how someday you're going to be dead and you don't really know what will happen then. And if you think there's no God but it turns out there is one, you'll be up shit creek. He cites Christ by name twice in the song. He has harsh words for people who don't like the Pope. He calls out non-Christians for being trendy. For 5.5 minutes, Ozzy toes the party line on how people ought to think. It's really normal. The only thing that gives it an edge besides the fucking wicked music is that Ozzy's not super coherent and it starts to sound like he's saying this piece before he's really thought it through. Will you be so sure when your day is near? Say you don't believe. You had the chance but you turned it down. Now you can't retrieve? What? It's kind of confusing. It's like Ozzy knows what he means to say, but because he doesn't really understand it, the thoughts come out wrong. Which to me makes the song more frightening and gives it an even darker vibe than if it had been trying to be super dark and succeeding. I guess I have always been afraid of anything that seems like it might not make sense. The last verse of the song is a bizarre threat that I could never quite make heads or tails of back then. And when I squint my eyes to read the tiny lyrics on the cassette inlay, they still jump out at me like little rubber tarantulas. Perhaps you think before you say God is dead and gone, open your eyes, just realize that He is the one. The only one who can save you now from all the sin and hate. Or will you still jeer at all you hear? Yes, I think it's too late. That yes, Ozzy says, that he writes down like that? What the hell is it? Is it like a preacher telling us we're damned? Or an authority figure like your dad maybe, telling you that you've made your bed and now you've got to lie in it? Is Ozzy actually happy that we're going to hell? He seems to think we're going there for sure. That it's a done deal, but whether he thinks that or not, his point is pretty easy to restate. Jesus is Lord, so get with the program. Last night in my apartment with all these half-empty boxes lying around and no decorations on the wall, I rewound the tape and listened again and again. The more I listened, the crazier I got. Ozzy was one of you guys. He was on your side the whole time, but you wouldn't even listen to him to find out. I spent hours every day trying to get you to let me listen to some guy sending me the exact same message that Blue Cross was paying you to sell me all day. Couldn't it be you're afraid of what your friends might say? If they knew you believed in God above, they should realize before they criticize that God is the only way to love. For this, I got my ass locked up in a fucking hospital while my friends were out getting jobs and cars and girlfriends? What the fuck is wrong with you people? October 3, 1995. I think about it every day, whether I want to or not, no matter what kind of day I'm having. On a good day, when I remember spending 2 years locked up getting told what I should and shouldn't think, I don't blame anybody for anything. My parents didn't know how to deal with an angry teenager, and the people in the hospitals didn't really know either. They just tried to act like they did. For money, maybe. Or perhaps because they really believed it. How they could believe that? I don't know. because you don't have to look around those places for long to realize that they're so fat with sadness, it's a wonder the walls don't crack. Which is how I think about it on bad days, which I try not to have because in my heart I can't stand to think the worst. I really can't stand it. If I'm having a long or hard week, though, or if I'm super bored and wishing I had a different life, I think some really dark things. I think the difference between the hospital and the axe murderer is that the axe murderer is trying to kill you quickly, but the hospital is trying to do it slow. I know this sounds kind of haggard, but I have got to say what I mean here, or there isn't any point. I think hardly anybody in those places really knew what was going on out in the unit. The nurses stayed in the office or ran groups, and you guys had your sessions, but we lived in our rooms and in the classes and the hallways, so it might surprise you when I tell you that the main thing we all thought and talked about amongst ourselves when you weren't listening was death. Everybody talked about death all the time. It didn't scare us. We knew you were all terrified that something was going to happen to us, and you'd have to pay for it, and that gave us power. If one kid with enough charisma had floated the idea past us, I'm sure we would have all killed ourselves on the same day just to spite you all. The song After Forever is just a 30-second guitar part with a name. There's almost nothing there. Maybe that is why they call it Embryo. It is about the most harmless thing in the world. I'm not sure if it's two parts recorded separately and then layered on top of each other, or if Tony Iommi is kind of showing off. I can't even tell what it's supposed to be. If it's an introduction to the next song, or if I'm supposed to think about it separately. I mean, it has a name, and so does the other instrumental on the album, which is called Orchid, and happens right after Children of the Grave, which is the song right after Embryo. One time, I had a very deep discussion with my friend Mike about this. I talked about him in my old diary, but I don't know if you remember. He was the drummer in my band. He had diabetes and didn't take care of himself, and he lost his leg last year, but he still plays percussion in a jam band, and I go to see them sometimes. He has to sit in a chair when he plays. Mike used to say that Embryo was part of the song Children of the Grave, and that Orchid was part of the song Lord of this World, and that they only gave these instrumental parts different titles because if they didn't do that, then the album would only have 6 songs, and nobody was going to buy a 6-song album unless it was by Led Zeppelin, or by Yes. Gary, I have to tell you that when I start trying to write about all this pointless stuff, I start crying uncontrollably. The sobbing shakes my whole body. I feel like my chest is going to collapse. I strangle the crying sounds in my throat because I feel so stupid. And then I know why it makes me sad, or I think I do. My store of good memories from my youth is pretty tiny. I didn't get to spend as much of that time with Mike as I wanted to, talking to him about albums, because he really liked talking about that stuff. It's hard to find people who want to just talk about an album for an hour. How it works, what it feels like, the different ways you can think of it. And I am a person who can really find happiness talking about that kind of thing. Only I think there's more to it than that. I don't know. But when I think about whether Embryo is the intro to Children of the Grave or not, and what song Orchid belongs with, it's like I am leaning hard against the door of some secret place and I can hear the noises from in there. The next song is Children of the Grave, but I'm not going to write about it tonight. I was going to, but I got lost, and now I can't stand it. I have to be ready for it. Tonight, I am not ready anymore. October 4, 1995. Revolution in their minds. The children start to march against the world in which they have to live, and all the hate that's in their hearts. They're tired of being pushed around and told just what to do. They'll fight the world until they've won, and love comes flowing through. This is a hard song for me to write about. October 5, 1995. This is the story of the day before you met me, Gary, which was almost exactly 10 years ago. You might wonder how I can remember a day that was more or less a typical day for any teenager. But if you do wonder that, you might think a little harder about what that day meant for me, because it was the end of something. It was hot. I remember it was just a real hot fall. Very dry going into October, and the smog was worse than usual, so that your chest hurt if you walked around outside for too long. I wondered if the mountains would burn like they did when I was 9. I used to look north from my house and see the mountains glowing red. It was a Wednesday, middle of the week. My stepfather got home from work at about 7:15 in the morning. At breakfast, he told me that he couldn't pick me up from the school after work like he usually did, but that the hospital where he works would send a van, and then I could wait at work with him because he had picked up an afternoon shift for a friend that day and wouldn't be working the night shift later. I feel stupid now for believing that because it had never happened before, but I am the kind of person who will believe anything, I guess. It's strange to me that I haven't joined a cult or something. I said I didn't really want to go to the hospital, but that I would go to my friend Mike's house and hang out until dinner time. I saw my stepdad and my mom exchanging glances when I said that, and I should have known something was up, but how could I have guessed? I was young. He said something about how I should come to the hospital because we could get dinner together or something, and then things really began to feel suspicious to me, because we hadn't been getting along at all for a while. We used to hang out like buddies before I got to high school, but we had been at each other's throats for what seemed like forever now. I didn't want to be a dick though, so I said, well, okay, but that seemed to set him off, and the mood got super tense. He did this thing he always did where he stared really hard at me as if it were my job to make him feel better. So I said, what? And he said, what the fuck do you mean, what? In an imitation of my voice. I wanted to cry. I didn't want to live with those people anymore, him or my family who put up with him, or in my house where I didn't belong at all. But also, I just wanted to get breakfast over with because it was already ruined, so I said, sorry, I didn't mean anything. I'm just tired, sorry. And I could tell he didn't believe me. He was right not to believe me. I was lying. But he just went back to his breakfast, and I went back to mine. He made small talk on the drive up to school. It was weird. The mood was rotten, like rotten food or dirty laundry. I felt shitty. Once we got to school, I cut through campus and went out to the far side of the football field where I hang out instead of going to gym class, because I hate gym. The football field was empty most days, and it's a big field, so I could stay there and sit by myself. I had some pot and some cigarettes, so sat there and smoked and got out my Walkman. I listened to Born Again, which was the latest and greatest from Black Sabbath. That was what the radio ads for Licorice Pizza said anyway. Just in, the latest and greatest from Black Sabbath. It was a lie, of course, but it was a pretty good album anyway. It was terrifying if you were young and stoned and angry and cold, but when I got to the song Zero, the Hero, it was a little too scary. It has this high scraping guitar part at the beginning that sounds like a feral cat, and the singing is clipped and weird, and it was freaking me out, so I switched tapes and listened to Master of Reality, side 2. Then I smoked more cigarettes. I stared into the bottle brush bushes. I listened to Orchid, and I felt like I was drifting into some ocean of purple velvet, lying on my back, floating. I guess I was just sitting on a bench with my eyes closed and earphones on, but Orchid pulled me gently out of real life and transported me somewhere else, which was what I felt like I needed most in the world. It was magic. That was when, I will never forget it, Lord of this World kicked in. It was like a SWAT team kicking out the windows inside of my head. 1 second I was floating, and then I was being pummeled. Ozzy sings Lord of this World as if he were Satan addressing a lost soul. Me all stoned and full of nicotine and hating my stepfather so much. Afraid that a proctor was going to come and catch me smoking. Big guitar riff slicing through all those hospital thoughts like a Chinese meat cleaver. Chop, 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 chop. And then the drums in the chorus. People talked a lot about nuclear war in those days, and when I heard Bill Ward pounding away at the drums and those lyrics echoing the snare hits, they probably sound stupid, but they seem so loaded with doom and horror to me. Bam, 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 bam! Lord of this World. Bam, 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 bam! Evil possessor. I would see huge orange mushroom clouds in my mind, and it felt good. I didn't want to hurt anybody. I didn't feel hopeless. I felt like somebody understood what my anger felt like, is how I would put it now. I chewed some Trident and went to the rest of my classes. I went back to the benches at the field with my girlfriend, Karen, during lunch, and we made out. There's more to it than that. What the hell? This may be uncomfortable for you to hear, but I have to do what I have to do, Gary. She also gave me oral sex. This wasn't that unusual. We were still hanging out all the time. People called it getting together at my school, when you did stuff with your ex. No big deal. It came to seem like a bigger deal to me later, because it would turn out to be the last sexual contact I would have with anybody for over 2 years. Unless you count that time a guy at State tried to convince me to trade handjobs, and then just did himself in front of me when I said no. Anyway, back at school, before any of that later stuff, my day was now pretty great. Everything in my adolescent world was alright. When I felt good like that, when I could forget that I hated living at home and that it didn't feel like I was growing up right, and that I might be doomed or cursed or lost or something, I can't quite find the word for what I mean. Marked for death is what I want to say, but that's too much. Preemptively ruined, maybe? It was how I felt most of the time. But on some days, I didn't feel like that. If I was having a good day like on that day, sometimes all the internal noise of feeling like everything had already started going to waste would recede into the background. And while it would still be there, hiding out, lying dormant, I'd feel a little more hopeful. Just a little. And when I felt like that, I'd want to listen to Black Sabbath, because the whole feeling of having crawled out from under some rock long enough to enjoy the sunlight, even if it was only a bleak sort of way, that was what I got from their records. I felt like they got that, like that was what they were all about. So just then I wanted to play Children of the Grave and share it with Karen, because the song was so positive but also wicked and cool and rooted in that doomed feeling. But I only had one set of headphones, so we shared them. Karen pressed her ear against one and I pressed my ear against the other, and we listened together. It was awesome for me. My day had gone from being exactly what I hated about life to being most of the things I liked. I finished out the rest of it, 2 more classes, Algebra 2 and U.S. History. Then, when I went to the curb, a van pulled up and a couple of men asked if I was Roger. I said yes, and they said that they were from my dad's work and were going to take me there. I remember that I corrected them and told them that wasn't my dad, because my dad lived in Oregon. It was my stepfather they were talking about. Plus, why would they call the hospital they worked at my dad's work, instead of saying, we're from Brea County Hospital? So many clues. But they just said, right, your stepfather. And I got into the van. We got onto the San Bernardino freeway and were heading toward LA. So even though the whole thing felt very weird, I figured maybe it was just me, because that was the right way to go to my stepdad's work. But then they passed the Santa Ana freeway, and I was confused because the only way I knew to get to Brea was via the Santa Ana. So I asked them, and they said that they were going to use the 605. I'd only had a driver's license since June though, and I figured these guys have got to know where they're going, right? But the whole time I felt like something was wrong, like I'd felt at breakfast. And the one guy in the front passenger seat kept asking me strange questions every 5 or 10 minutes. Like, what do you like to do in your spare time? Or, do you have a lot of friends? I didn't understand why he was asking those questions, but now I do. You can probably guess how I felt when the van pulled into the treatment center. It took me a minute to really get it. I guess because I did not want to believe it was happening. I'd had friends who were taken away to places like it, but they were mostly Mormons, and their whole situation had been more honest. Elders had just shown up at their door early one morning and told them, we're here to take you to Utah, and we can do this the easy way or the hard way. So they knew right away where they stood. With me, they lied to me. And then, once I got to Santa Fe Springs, what could I do? Run away? I didn't even know where I was, and by the time they'd parked the van, we were already behind the locked gate. Then they walked me into the front building and asked me for my backpack, and that is when I lost control. By then I had a sense of what was happening and I wanted to assert some kind of control. And I got so angry, because I knew I was totally fucked then, just fucked. And so when one of my escorts touched my backpack, I jerked it away from him, and the other guy grabbed my hand and held it behind my back. And I almost punched him in the face. I mean, I really wanted to hit him. But there were other staff already coming to help them, and I only had myself. So I just started yelling at them to give me back my backpack. And they handed it to one of the nurses, and she told them to bring me along to a room where she'd lead. She was explaining the whole time that they would keep my stuff for me in a cubby in the nurses' station. All of this was happening very fast, and I had a bunch of stuff in my head. What's next? Are they going to tie me to a bed like the people at Horizon did to my friend Kevin? Do I have to take medications now? Are they going to cut my hair off and make me look normal? It was like there was a whole room full of people in my brain asking questions I couldn't answer, and every question made me realize just how bad it really was. So I started to cry, and the nurse said, "Don't worry, honey, we're not going to throw your things away. We're here to help you." And she put her hand on my shoulder. I gave up. I felt so weak. I had Children of the Grave running on loop in my head. It was the only thing in the world that felt good. It contained the memory of my morning, how I had taken a negative morning and made it positive. I felt like I could unleash the power of that song droning and pulsing in my ears. I could destroy all the people who were trying to ruin my life right then. But all the power was confined to that small giant space inside my skull. I couldn't do anything with it. It was for me alone. They took my backpack, they took my clothes, I sat in my room, new empty place, and I stared at the wall and I cried. October 8, 1995. Went out for a walk this morning and passed the Iglesia Esperanza Nueva. I had that empty floating feeling I get when I see people whose faith is strong. The Iglesia Esperanza Nueva used to be a shoe store. It was a Tom McAnn's, but then this whole neighborhood just gave up a few years ago. The buildings were empty. Some guys would open up little stores that'd stay open for only a month or two, and then they'd just be gone overnight. There was a newsstand and a music store, a little restaurant that served beer and glasses and burgers and fries, but every place around here closes. It's like there's a curse, but a very mild curse. All the buildings will be nice, but nobody will ever take care of them. Something hurts inside me when I pass a church, especially a small one in a converted shoe store. I hear their joy, and I wish I had it. Today's Sunday, so it's a big day in the Iglesia. It's the only thing open on the whole block. Nobody's driving around on the streets. I felt like I was in a science fiction movie where I was the only guy on earth who wasn't a member of the church. As if there were maybe 70 people left on the planet, 69 of them believers, and then me. I went in. So bright inside, like a room full of candles. Hot, too. Everybody's got their eyes on God, but me. I'm thinking mainly about Lord of this world. It's like I can't stop. Babies are crying. Tiny electric organs are throbbing. People are coming up to me to say, Jesucristo es el Señor? And I'm smiling and nodding because I have had a lot of practice smiling and nodding and choking back whatever acid's raising up in my throat. They have something I don't. I want whatever it is they've got, but I feel like I probably don't even really have any idea what it is. As close as I can come to what they've got is Black Sabbath. But then, as I'm sitting down and taking my place in one of the 40 or so kitchen chairs that serve for seating, I feel like there's a shadow moving around inside of me. And I know right then, I can feel that between Lord of this world and the whole scene in the church, there's a connection for me. Circuits start forming in my head. Inside the building, the shrillness of the church music is really coming alive. It's mostly women, and they're all singing as loud as they can, and they get so totally into it. Tears roll down their cheeks and their mouths open really huge. There aren't any breaks, no time to rest or think about what's going on. You can't even believe it's reality after a while. So I got freaked out, and I left quietly, while they were all raising their hands up in the air. I don't think anybody even noticed me leaving. Then I came home and listened to Lord of this world and tried to figure out what was going on with me. And then I did figure it out, and then I freaked out some more and wished I'd left the whole thing alone. It's always like this with Black Sabbath, though, I think. You circle around a song trying to figure out why it's bothering you, why the feelings that come out of you are what they are instead of something else, or why sometimes there aren't any feelings, just a numbness. Like it's not emotions but the after effects of them, or a memory of them, or imagining what it might be like to really let them out. It's not something in the words or in the music or on the cover. It's everything all at once in 2 dimensions that are bigger than the 3 dimensions of the outside world. I retreated into myself. The guitar tones and the thumpy drums soaking into me so hard. People always talk about good time rock and roll, Chuck Berry or whatever, like this liberating force for feeling good. But what I need in my life is to be liberated into feeling bad, not sad. I have plenty of sad. What I need is a place where I can spray anger in sparks like a gnarled piece of electrical cable. Just be mad at stuff and soak in the helplessness. That was when I looked at my old diary again, and I realized why this song was fucking with me so bad. We go back a ways together, me and the Lord of this world. You don't remember, I'm sure, but when I took back my Walkman and my tapes from the nurse's station 10 years ago, I tried to tell you what this song did for me. Oh, it spoke to me where I was instead of trying to tell me where I was supposed to go. I did the best I could to explain how this music was a part of me. Maybe you didn't have a part of yourself that compared to this part of me. So maybe that's why you couldn't understand. But I was operating on blind faith. I trusted you to see this piece of me, this wasted, broken part, and recognized it the way one country recognizes another. Instead, you did the same thing countries do when they refuse to recognize each other. You just pretended it wasn't there, but it was huge for me. Now that part of me wants to come out, but it's been in the dark so long that it's starving for air. It's sick now. I cried again, even though you're not supposed to cry at this kind of music, and then I vomited on the floor. October 9, 1995. Writing today from the office at work. The office is a tiny overstuffed room with a time clock on one wall, a desk against another, and a dry erase board on the next. You can fit 2 people in here if you have to, but neither one of them will be able to sit down. The restaurant opens for breakfast at 9. I usually get here around 7. Today I got here at 6 because I can't sleep for shit right now. Writing to you about all this stuff is messing me up real bad, and I should probably stop and throw everything away. The old diary, the tape, this. I can't, though. I feel like I've been on autopilot for the last 7 years or so, and I guess you're probably supposed to avoid being a sort of nameless guest in your own life, but I was a lot more comfortable 2 weeks ago. Now I feel like a freak. Kids at State used to call each other freak. It was like the meanest thing you could call a guy until he had been there long enough to really stop caring. At that point, though, it stopped being an insult and became more like a job title or an army rank. There was a guy named Hector who sketched a giant band-style logo on his notebook in a big dripping letters. Freak! Anyhow, I brought my boombox to work today. I feel like I went to bed starving, and being hungry tends to kick off a chain reaction of protective feelings for me, so I kind of went into drone mode. After I unlocked the restaurant, I prepped the salad bar, and I ended up fixing myself a massive plate of salad for breakfast. It looked like a cartoon of a salad, like a jughead sandwich on a plate. You could feel the weight of it just by looking at it. It was its own salad planet. I had that thought for a second, and then it opened up like a huge vision. This giant salad suspended in space, surrounded by stars. I don't know if you can imagine how bad it fucks a person up to not make any of his own food choices for a couple of years when he's a teenager, but this should give you an idea. I get pretty caveman with food now. I can't stop loading up my plate until there's food falling off of it. Once there was blue cheese dressing spilling over the edges, and sunflower seeds and fake bacon bits and alfalfa sprouts and croutons. I came back to the coffee, and I put in Master of Reality, which I'm carrying around in my jacket pocket lately, which makes me feel like I'm trying to get a do-over on being a teenager or something. But as soon as the music started playing, I didn't feel like I was trying to do anything. I was there. The tape was queued up to Solitude, which is the song that people use to argue about for a lot of reasons. Number 1 was because the singer on it does not sound like Ozzy Osbourne. People said it was the drummer, Bill Ward, but I could never believe it. I guess I don't really know how records get made, but I've heard most of the Black Sabbath albums, and I think if Bill Ward could sing, he'd be on more than this one song. But again, it certainly doesn't sound like Ozzy, though. Here's the thing, though. It also doesn't sound like Black Sabbath. It sounds like a folk song or a soundtrack to some Merlin story. It's only got 2 chords. There's a flute playing all through it. It's never really seemed to fit on the album for me because it doesn't even sound like Black Sabbath at all, but that's exactly what makes it seem like it might be really important. You can tell yourself all sorts of stories about this song, and all of them could be true. It's not Black Sabbath, but a friend's band who they wanted to put on the album. It's a song that Ozzy's dad wrote, and they wanted to do it the best way they could. The record company forced them to write a ballad. They wrote it when they were all in a satanic trance. It's an open confession of their real feelings. You could come up with possible explanations all day long, and you'll still never be satisfied, because any story you imagine is going to be as good as the next. I listened to the song, and I closed my eyes, and I tried to pretend I was giving this song as a gift to my younger self. In order to do this, I have to go back in time. I want to try to describe for you, Gary, what it feels like when I manage to do this. But it's difficult to explain. It's like passing through a door. It used to happen randomly, when I'd run across a rerun of The Equalizer or something, and somebody'd have a hairstyle that reminded me of high school. Then it seemed to stop, but now I have this hex key that can open that door no matter what room I'm in. It's this thing that I spent months reaching blindly for in the dark, hoping for its return like a kid waiting for Christmas morning. The tape. The Holy Grail. I was on my 3rd pass through it when that spectral door opened and I saw my 16-year-old self standing there in front of me. For me, the right now present day me, It was a wonderful moment. Solitude is such a weird, mysterious song, with these jingling bell sounds and pained, lonesome words about losing someone. I was floating in the soothing sounds of it, and now I had myself to share it with. Physically, I was sitting in my office chair down here in the dirt and clay world, and the stink of the restaurant was soaking through my clothes. But in my mind, I was face to face with young me, and I hoped we could revel in the sadness and the emptiness of the song together. But then my younger self spoke to me, and he said Solitude was the gayest song on Master of Reality, and besides, that wasn't even Ozzy singing. That sort of took me out of it. I opened up my eyes and I wondered whether my younger self was actually somebody who's still inside me at all. Maybe the person who wakes up and sometimes isn't really like that younger person at all. Maybe that younger person died when he became this older person. And now when I think I'm feeling his emotions and sharing his rage, I'm really just mourning his death. If that's true, I don't know how I can stand it. I'm 26, but I'm not ready for my 16-year-old self to be dead. So I bring his ghost to work with me and hold seances behind a locked office door. And when I come out of it, there's this gigantic salad in front of me, and I want to start eating it with my bare hands, reciting these childish lyrics out loud, spitting sunflower seeds and bacon bits in big chunks at the wall. October 10, 1995. I wish they'd conduct a national poll to find out who feels out of place and who doesn't, just to get the numbers, you know? To get a feel for how many of us there are. Sometimes at work I get the feeling that it's got to be right up against 100%. I'll head out of the register to help out during the lunch rush, and the new cashier will look so confused and lost. And then I'll look at the customers she's supposed to be helping, and they'll look lost too. And then when I sneak a glance toward the tables, there'll be all these people staring at their food or at each other with blank looks in their eyes. And I'll think, is this just me? Is everybody else actually fine, and I'm just trying to imagine that they're like me? But I don't think so. I've thought about this a lot, and I'm pretty sure that some ridiculous percentage of the population is walking around feeling like aliens. I think teenagers feel that all the time. I did, before I came to Santa Fe Springs, but this is one way in which I'd say that going there and then graduating to the big leagues of the state hospital did me a small favor. Because in the hospital, you don't wonder whether something's wrong with you. You know it. Just being there lets you know. It's like belonging to a very exclusive club where there's no way of even applying for membership. You just wake up one day and discover you've been admitted. You may not want your membership, but it can't be declined. And once you've got it, it gives you a sort of loose security. It comes with a catch, though, which is that your doctors and nurses and aides are all paid to tell you that it's very important for you to leave the club as soon as possible. Which hardly seems fair, since the very people telling you this are the ones who brought you through the clubhouse doors and then locked them behind you. And so we learn quickly that we can't look up to these people or trust the rules they tell us to live by, because the rules are full of trapdoors. Pretty soon we learn that all the people we're supposed to look up to for guidance think we're stupid or dangerous or confused, which is really insulting. And at that point, we're all out of role models, because any other possible role models are out there in the real world, which we can only visit when we get a day pass. The people we see every day seem to have been made from different parts. So we look up to Black Sabbath, to what we remember of them, in my case. Even after we've grown up, we do. Always. Because looking at Black Sabbath, at their album covers, at their handmade costumes, at their lyric sheets, at the dumb faces they make in their videos now, we can see people like us. It's nice. I don't do sports, but with Ozzy, I feel like I understand the concept of the home team crowd. It's like, I know that dude. That's the guy who used to break into people's houses. Now he's making money and the whole block is safe. Good for him. Maybe every other band in the world has more brains and deeper meaning, but only Black Sabbath sounds like exactly what my friends and I might have done if we'd had the equipment. Which, by the way, is the actual story of how Black Sabbath got started, though I can hardly stand to think about it now, because it's dangerous to think about how things might have been different. Still, when Ozzy Osbourne was a teenager, he lived in Birmingham, England. When I was in treatment, I used to try to imagine Birmingham, but all I knew about England was the Queen and the Buckingham Palace guards, really, and Shakespeare. Birmingham isn't like that, I found out later. It's a town that manufactured a lot of guns in the 19th century, and then tires in the 20th, and then it got the crap bombed out of it during the Second World War. Ozzy Osbourne was born in the late 40s, so he probably grew up looking at a lot of bomb craters. I grew up in Southern California, so what I grew up looking at was a lot of strip malls. Same basic idea. The only difference is that my neighborhood looked like it was waiting to get bombed instead of recovering from the bombing. Ozzy dropped out of school and started doing burglaries when he was 15, or that's what people say. You never know what's true about rock stars because they always try to make themselves sound like they're really tough guys. But the story goes that Ozzy spent 2 months in prison when he was young, which is where they say he gave himself the Ozzy tattoo that he has on his knuckles. This story is believable to me because the tattoo is very shitty. Another part of the story says that he tried to get into the army and they turned him down. Eventually, he starts hanging around in bars and listening to loud music. All of this is history, but this next part is my interpretation. He starts hanging out in loud bars because he thinks his life sucks and he wants to get wasted. If Ozzy had come from California, he would have been sent to treatment, and that would have been the end of that. Instead, his dad bought him a PA system to keep him out of trouble, and he started forming bands. Rare Breed, the Polka Tulk Blues Company, Earth. Different guys who were also losers started to join up, and then they became Black Sabbath, and instead of trying to make important records that make a big statement, the band decided to stay exactly the same as they were when they had just been angry young people getting hammered in bars. This makes them role models, real ones, not unreachable dicks like Bon Jovi, who you know got into music with a business plan and had a bank account under the band's name before they played their first show. And not like Poison or any of those other bands they have now. When you listen to early Black Sabbath, you know that the main difference between them and you is that somebody bought them guitars and microphones. They're not smarter than you. They're not deeper than you. They're a fuck of a lot richer than you, but other than that, it's like listening to the inside of your own mind. So when they write songs, they sing about wizards and witches and robots. When they try to write a love song, it always ends up being about getting rejected before anything really got started. And they sing about war too, like everybody else who's making records at that time, but they don't really have anything special to say about it except that it sucks. They say they figure things would probably be better if we did not have wars. And they say how the world's going to end, but we should all be friends. By the time they make Master of Reality, they're pretty famous, but anybody who says he can hear a difference between the Ozzy who wrote the song Black Sabbath and the Ozzy who sings Children of the Grave is a liar. It's the same guy. Some dumb poor kid from a bombed out town in the middle of nowhere. That's why Black Sabbath are special. They aren't rags to riches. They are just rags. All they have is themselves, but that's turned out to be enough for them. I know that I'm smart, or kind of smart, or I was smart, anyway. But it doesn't matter whether I'm smart, because I'm at a dead end, and I'm going to stay there. Put the smartest man in the world in outer space, and will his brain help him breathe any easier? No. So this gives me some comfort because I had to scramble to keep my head above water after I got out of state, and that meant finding a paying job fast. And once I got to where I am, I felt like any potential I'd had at one point was getting sucked down the drain so fast that I could just watch while it happened. Goodbye potential, hello restaurant management. Luckily for me though, almost at that exact moment, the rest of my life went to shit, and I found my old tapes and my old diary and you. And over the last week, I have really begun to make some connections and to answer some questions for myself. I am almost done now. It almost feels good. October 11, 1995. Hump Day. One of the prep cooks called in sick. My phone rang at 5:30. There's a lot of prep work to do before we can open, and there wasn't anybody else to do it, so I got dressed and went to work. Most of the AM prep is for the lunch rush, which is big at our restaurant because we're near an office park. We sell a lot of hamburgers, and the thing about our hamburgers is that we shape and press the patties ourselves in thicknesses of 1/3 or 1/2 pound. Our prep cooks do this behind a big glass window near the cash register. They wear butcher smocks and feed ground beef into this patty shaping machine, which everybody calls the beefinator. The beefinator presses ground beef into tight patties and then drops them 4 at a time into long baking sheets that we've prepped with wax paper. If somebody's still making patties after 7, when the dishwashers clock in, then the dishwashers will stop in every 20 minutes or so to get the burgers and take them into the cold storage. Before 7, you're on your own. I showed up and changed into my butcher smock, and I carried the boombox from my little office into the patty making room, which the cooks call chez beef. This is French for house of beef, which I didn't know until I asked 3 of the cooks, which I had to do because the first 2 had no idea. I have a selective fear of breaking things. I don't care much if other people's stuff gets broken, but I stress out about my own shit. So I picked a corner of the room that hardly ever gets any traffic, empty red brick spot near an electrical outlet by the drain. Then I set the boombox up, and I just pressed play, picking up right where I'd left off the other day, only much louder because the Beefinator makes a lot of noise. Well, it was really something when the music started to play. It was 6:45, not even daylight out yet, and I was living my teenage dream, up to my elbows in sticky, bloody ground beef, which I was feeding methodically to a loud and potentially very dangerous machine. I was alone and in control, and nobody was going to bother me, and I sang along as loud as I could with my Black Sabbath tape, Into the Void. Maybe you remember this song. I can't imagine it, but I wish you did. I just indulged, man. It was like something jarred loose inside of me, or like I was shedding a skin. The Beefinator's whine drops about 4 tones when you shove a huge mass of meat into it. And then as the chub passes through, the whine rises. This happens again and again. Whine, drone, whine, drone. It's like every time the sound peaked out, I'd force it back into the growl. All of this was perfect for the scene, because I read Tony Iommi once in an interview saying that he started tuning his strings down on this very album because his fingers were hurting from so much touring. That's how this record's mood came into the world. Nagging pain in a guy's fingers from too much work. You do what you have to do, and then incredible things happen. Is that right? I'm asking you. Into the Void was as close as I could get to liking punk rock when I was young. And it still counts for me. The words are fast and the tune is snotty, and Ozzy tries to get all end times about everything because that's always been his favorite theme. Fire and smoke and high technology, all the old Ozzy specialties. At this point, I'm hollering real loud just to hear myself, because the tape deck and the machine are making so much noise, and I want to be part of the moment. Blood is dripping all over my hands. I'm not even wearing gloves. So this is me, bright and early, in the place I day manage, working out the tension. Rocket engines burning fuel so fast, off into the night sky they blast. Through the universe the engines whine. Could it be the end of man and time? Back on Earth the flame of life burns low. Everywhere is misery and woe. Pollution kills the air, the land, and sea. Man prepares to leave his destiny. It's the same notes over and over. The melody sounds like that one kid in the middle of a schoolyard who's taunting all the other kids, and he knows they're going to kick his ass as soon as they get tired of listening to him, so he's getting his money's worth. The question in my mind when I imagine this scene is whether the beating would be more or less severe if the kid ever got to the punchline. Leave the earth to all its sin and hate. Find another world where freedom waits. Past the stars and fields of ancient void, through the shields of darkness where they find love upon a land, a world unknown, where the sons of freedom make their home. Leave the earth to Satan and his slaves, leave them to the fortune in the grave, make a home where love is there to stay, peace and happiness in every day. That's what it is. That's what my morning was like. All these real, physical, heavy, positive vibrations, the soul of this tape, the fuzzy groove, the meaning of it all. If it has one, all love, all the time. Peace and happiness in every day. Peace and happiness with cow blood dripping from your hands. Bright blood staining your fingerprints because you didn't glove up since you don't normally do prep work. Peace and happiness when you're making a list of everything that's wrong with the world and squinting your eyes tight trying to imagine your way out of it. Peace, peace, peace. Happiness, happiness, happiness. That was the message that Master of Reality came to spread. It's the same message we get told about once a year at Christmas time, and we hear that we're supposed to carry the message with us all year long. But some of us who are desperate to find this message end up finding it in places where the tones are really dark and the images are explosive and scary. And when we say that we found the secret of love in some sticky, lightless place, we get punished, which ends up happening a lot of times because we keep digging around in the places where we know love is. We have our priorities straight. We learn not to mind getting punished if we can just keep what we found on the way to the punishment. Most of us eventually learn to love being punished after a while. It gets to where it feels good. If any of this is at all surprising to you, Gary, you should hand in your counselor's license.
October 12, 1985. When I work overtime, I usually like to treat myself to something cool. So last night, I went out and spent some money on a good pair of headphones. The pair I've been using till today has foam pads. I hate foam pads. It was a normal day at work today. When I got home in the early afternoon, I plugged my new headphones into the stereo and I got out the tape. I am like an explorer in a cave with this thing now, but I can't decide whether I'm trying to get out of the cave or climb down to the bottom of it. I think of the sign for infinity when I think about this. There's a lot in this album that you can only notice with headphones, or that's how it seems to me, though I don't know if that's really true. It could be that if your stereo was very expensive, you would hear everything right out there in the room. When I hit the jackpot someday, and I end up getting a decent stereo, I will make this question an action item, as they say in management training. But with headphones anyway, things that you could maybe feel in your body but not know for sure in your mind suddenly become clear. The thing that really goes 3D is how heavy it all is. Since the 70s, there have been lots of bands much heavier than Black Sabbath. Slayer, Metallica, all kinds of bands who sound like they were listening to Black Sabbath when they were still in diapers. Soundgarden, Alice in Chains, new bands are always trying for that heavy sound. But in 1971, which is the copyright year on my Master of Reality tape, it was not really a thing people did, except for maybe Led Zeppelin, and whoever it was that did Mississippi Queen. Otherwise, when you hear music from back then, it sounds like adults trying too hard to be happy and young. Like The Who. The Who get pretty serious at times, but even when they're super loud and crazy and the guitars go nuts, you can still tell that these are guys who dance at parties. Master of Reality sounds like a record made for guys who have never once danced at a party in their lives. That's kind of what it means to be heavy, I think. To be too heavy to dance. It's not that Ozzy wouldn't like to dance. He even does dance sometimes, on stage, sort of. He hunches his body over and he claps his hands and the frills of his sleeves flow up and down with the movement of his arms. He leans forward and pulls back, and his whole body seems to follow the leaning, moving in time with the music. He lurches like a big tree in the wind and the rain, but it isn't the same as dancing with somebody, or dancing by yourself in a crowd. It's more like what we used to call spaz attacks. If you put on headphones and listen to Sabbath, you get a real feel for what all this is actually about. The heaviness and the spaz attacks. It's a feeling. It's kind of like when the white-haired guy on Trinity Broadcasting Network is doing his thing and it's 2 in the morning and you can't sleep, which is why you're watching TBN. To the white-haired guy, everything he's saying is really important. Otherwise, why would he be yelling? But once he really gets up to speed, this feeling crackles through the airwaves and it buries all the other things you're supposed to be noticing. The words, the message. I feel it every time. Even though I have no special connection to television preachers or their messages, I feel this mood unfolding like a black robe. And I know I'm about to get to the part with the blood, the precious blood, and all that. But I can hardly hear what he's saying. It disappears underneath this flood of emotion. It's the same with, for example, After Forever, only backwards. The lyrics to this song I already talked about. They matter to me a lot, but underneath the headphones they vanish into these special effects. Synthesizers. Everybody has them now. They sound exotic to me here though. Not exotic like something tropical, but like the monster in Alien, or like a spaceship in the sand. Shiny stuff that might have guns inside. At the very beginning it sounds like the tape is running backwards, like somebody is unhitting a cymbal. The first 10 seconds are that effect. Then the synth comes up and I think of blood pooling on a carpet in a horror movie, or light hitting a knife. These thoughts come to me when I find the right spot in the song, and then I feel like I'm getting back something I lost. I get younger. In the headphones, The sounds feel like they're starting at the center of my skull and then running around like a living thing, like a confused rat. But that's just for a second. Then everything expands into both ears evenly and quickly. Lights flip up, that's the next 5 seconds. And then drums and guitars both at once. And after those, the bass. Listen through the headphones and you'll think it can't be a human playing that bass, because fingers and picks make noises on the strings that you can usually hear. These strings sound like jelly, creatures from other planets playing their private hymns, something like that. It's just enormous. It keeps getting bigger. It's big like a planet or a glacier or a volcano, and you can take your pick because the end result's going to be the same. If you get close enough to it, you'll be standing in its shadow, just a speck in that shadow. What difference will the words make at that point? Like the white-haired preacher on TBN, it gets to a point where the sound tries to raise the words higher, and it's trying to actually help the words, but sometimes when you try to help something, you end up smothering it. Maybe you don't mean any harm, maybe you just get carried away. That's what After Forever is like. Too heavy to keep from crushing things. Ozzy is singing about Jesus. So what? Jesus can't survive any of this. Huge, fuzzy riffs and backward cymbals and synths that get into your head like burrowing worms. The lyrics rise up a line at a time like some guy caught in white water trying to breathe. He is going to drown. Every time he goes down, the band sounds like they're celebrating. Not that they're evil, just that it was kind of awesome to see that guy drown like that. And then, in the last 20 seconds, the bass sticks on this one high note, and everything sticks there with it. And you think something's going to break, and then it stops, and the weird synth sounds wash through everything. And it's all over. Lava slowing down as it runs down the mountain. Well, I thought all of this stuff when I was listening, and then I started writing it down. And as I wrote, I noticed that I'd sort of gone away somewhere, both while I was listening and while I was trying to describe it. And I had a moment, because I thought, is this why they wouldn't let us have music in the hospitals? Something about how you can't control what happens inside your head after you let the stuff in? But then I thought a little harder and remembered a couple hundred other rules from those places, none of which made any sense. No band t-shirts, no wristbands, no nicknames. And I realized that no, none of you hospital people know about this kind of effect at all. It has to be news to you if you even hear about it at all. So I felt sad for you, because you haven't ever stood in the shadow of a volcano and lived to tell about it, the way me and all of my old friends from treatment have. You can't even imagine what it's like. That is why you think everybody else is crazy. You don't know what they know. October 13, 1995. It's Friday, and it's the 13th, which always makes me feel young. Today is technically the second most evil day of the whole year, after Halloween. If you work with people, you often hear them say that everything happens for a reason, and I never believe them. It makes me angry when they say it, but I have to admit that I paused when I looked at the calendar in my apartment's kitchen this morning. I got this calendar free with dinner at New China up on Foothill. They were giving them away if you ate there in January. One thing about me is that I always get maximum use out of these things. When the managers from around the country all went to San Diego for the region-wide management training summit, I kept all the soaps and shampoos from the hotel room they'd put me in. I also kept the toothpaste. And I didn't keep them in a closet as a souvenir of the management training summit either. I used them. I squeezed the toothpaste up from the bottom of the tube. I am like that. I think this is a positive personality trait, probably. I'd guess I have you to thank for it, though I don't really feel thankful. I feel bad about not feeling thankful for something that's essentially positive in my life. But since the positive thing feels like an involuntary twitch, why should I be thankful? It's an endless loop. When I listened to the album this morning before I went into work, which I think I'm doing now just because I can, I timed it. It's about 34 minutes long. Most albums seem to be closer to 40, though I haven't timed any of the other ones in my collection. Every time I play the tape, though, I notice that the second side clicks itself off before I expect it to, so I thought I'd check to see whether the deficiency was in the album or in me. I thought that maybe my hunger for whatever it is I think I'm going to find in there was so strong that it was causing time to shrink, which is a crazy thought, but I keep having crazy thoughts lately, so it was hard to tell. As it turns out, I'm okay. The album is short. I count 6 songs and 2 sort of half songs that there are just guitar parts. 8 total individual song things. But the cassette lists 12. I remembered noticing this once years ago and feeling a sense of real mystification about it. It was a solid brick wall. Why does the tape say there are 12 songs? You could say it only actually claims 11 since After Forever says After Forever, including the elegy. But that doesn't really make a difference. The absolute maximum number of songs here is 9. If you listen to the album and look at these mystery titles long enough, you'll feel like someone is about to tell you a secret. I know that in therapy you would have encouraged me to use I statements about this. My hunch, though, here is that I actually mean you. You, Gary. You, anybody. Listen and hear and understand and look at the titles of the songs that you will never hear because they aren't there. And watch locked doors in some dark space out ahead of your field of vision as they start opening. Death Mask? The Haunting? The Elegy? Stuffed down in After Forever. Somewhere so deep that nobody could tell you where it went? Step Up? That's the one that really gets me, because the others all sound like some mood I already know. Step Up? I don't know what a Sabbath song called Step Up would sound like. I can almost understand how people would take music away from kids when I think about this hard enough. I don't know of any other album with anything like it. 8 songs you can hear, 12 songs on track listing. See here, I looked at a school picture from the 6th grade when I was moving house, and there I was, young and fresh. And there were my buddies, Danny Mendoza and James Harvey and Eric Warren, plus other kids whose names I still remember. The girls, dudes I didn't hang with but knew, the teacher. And then there are the faces that might as well have been people from different cities who got cropped into the picture by mistake. It was like, not only do I not remember these people, I am sure I've never seen them before in my life. I only spent a few minutes looking at them, but it was like staring into the face of real madness, trying to put names to these people. These missing songs are exactly like those faces for me. Death Mask, The Haunting, Step Up. Scars that turn up on your body and look old, but you know they weren't there yesterday. I thought like that for a while, but then I thought more reasonably, and in the voice that keeps sounding words out in my head these days. Black Sabbath is fucking with people to freak them out, which seems about right. The other possibilities were too fantastic. They recorded the songs and submitted them, but they were too intense, so somebody wiped them from the tape. But the labels had already been printed, and the album was released with their titles still intact. Or they had the songs, and they gave the titles to their manager to give to the label, but they spent too much time in the studio on the other songs, so they never got around to them. Or maybe the songs are actually somehow hidden inside the songs you hear, and I just haven't figured out how to get to them. They're right there. You're actually listening to them, but they erase themselves from your memory. I have to say that the more I thought about it, the happier I got. I felt young and stupid in all the right ways. It was like I'd found the part of the album that had never been taken away from me, because there was no way anybody could ever really possess it, whether they had the album or not. Inside these non-songs floating around are all the harder, darker songs that can't be written or heard. If they ever get out, teenagers will run wild in the streets, right? And blood will run in the gutters, and windows will be breaking everywhere. It is impossible for a guy like me not to feel real joy when he thinks about something like this. October 14, 1995. That brings me finally to Sweet Leaf, which I still couldn't put first, just like I couldn't 10 years ago. This time, though, I am armed. I got some weed from one of the cooks yesterday, and tonight I am stoned out of my fucking mind. Writing this, which is the last you'll ever hear from me, even if you write me back, which I still hope you will. Tomorrow is my sister's birthday, not that you would remember. Special day for me, lots of memories. Yeah, man, when I started looking at all the pieces, I began to understand just how naive I was to think I could ever explain anything to you. The steps you'd have to go through to really understand this music, there are too many of them. You would get lost on the path. You would get scared when it got dark. You wouldn't have enough faith to know that there was light up ahead, even though Ozzy stresses this point constantly, that there's a better day coming. Yeah, better days. I think there is maybe a very complicated bargain between Ozzy and his listeners on this album. A contract, which Ozzy keeps coming back to through the years because, this is my opinion, I came to it during a leadership opportunities seminar I went to for work. When you have a deal with somebody, you might think the deal's main purpose is to benefit you, but if everybody holds up his end, it can turn out that the real nature of the deal was hidden from both sides. This is some mystical bullshit, I know, but hold on. I have to start at the beginning. In England, a long time ago, a guy named Ozzy forms a band, Black Sabbath. They first come out with some very dark stuff. I never got around to telling you this part before, but Ozzy worked in a slaughterhouse when he was a teenager. I read an interview one time where he said, "I used to work with animals. I used to kill them." That was to tell you where he came from. Your block, not your rich friend's block. Other kids were all in the go-go 60s getting on TV, wearing cool shoes. Ozzy was killing cows and making noise with his band. They sewed their own clothes for the stage. None of this even matters, but it does to me. When they finally make their first record, they know they are different from everybody else. I know I can never make you understand, Gary, but I can't stop myself from trying to explain it. It's Saturday night. I am alone in here and so high right now. Sorry. But so okay, they make this record and it's a frightening record like Halloween, only without fun or candy, just people in costumes who actually kill people. That is how it feels to listen to the record when you were a kid who needs to escape. And then if you go back to the record later, it's still gonna sound like that. Time goes by, the guys realize they enjoy doing this instead of working in slaughterhouses or machine shops. You know, they are all like, "Holy God, this is so sweet. Rock and roll is the most popular music in the world." They make a second album called Paranoid. Everybody loves it. But if you listen to it versus the first album, you will know for sure that something has happened in Ozzy's brain, because now there is so much positivity in what he says, and the empty horror of the first album is just a memory or a shadow. Okay, this is where the bargain comes in. Ozzy wants that first album to be who he is, but it's not who he is. He's not really that way, but he wants to be, but he can't. But what he can do is act like he is that person he wants to be, even though he knows that everyone can tell he's not that guy. Still, in his song titles, album titles, in his vibe, he asks me and all his fans, "Pretend I am evil." He says, "Do it for me." And we do, because we are the same type of person. Our bad luck if we are too young to explain how important it can be to really be free to pretend when you are still figuring out who you are. If somebody catches us really getting good at this game, well, you know what can happen. That is where the genius comes in, because the real message, the hidden message, is that we are the ones who are making better days. It's like a Black Sabbath album is a test, and if you fail it, then you are crossed out of the world to come. Left out of the world coming soon. You know the future. If you therapists and teachers and bosses saw the whole thing as a preview at a movie theater, you would see that all the people you hate are running the show, and you would look for where you are in the story. But you wouldn't see yourself anywhere because you didn't understand what the point of anything was. So the future didn't save a place for you. I start to ask myself, what is the point? I imagine meeting with you in your office, if you have an office, or at your new hospital over there in West Covina. I imagine what your life is like now. You are rich, at least compared to me. I will not be getting rich, I guess. It doesn't look like I will. I try to imagine it, but I can't. I think about Ozzy, how he probably didn't know he would get rich, but by the time he was 20, he was on his way. Not me. I don't know if I ever would have had the chance now. I'll never know that. But I don't even want to be rich. I just want to be alone. This is what drives girlfriends away, that I want to be alone, even when I'm with people who like me. I got like this at state to protect myself. You probably sent a lot of kids to state. Well, some of them belonged there for sure, but some of them just didn't find a way to tell you who they were in time to stop you from sending them away. I am one of those kids, as you know. It was like I had a secret that only people who couldn't do anything to help me could understand. That's why I loved those people who couldn't help me. Strangers in England. Guys making tapes. In a way, it was you and everybody like you who put the final binding signature on my contract with Black Sabbath. You sealed the deal. Now when I hear them, I hear you disappearing into the meaningless past. Too high now to write anymore. Still angry. Can't go back. When I started this, I hoped you would write me back, but now I don't care. Instead, fuck you. Fuck you and go to hell. I mean it, Gary, for real. You and your whole system, fuck you all. I am better than you, or I will be someday. Better than all that. Getting there. Working hard to get there. So fuck you. Fuck you, man. Fuck you all. Go to hell.
Oh, you get me up. Oh, yeah.
Narrator's Endnote by me, Shane Logun. I began recording this project during a lot of downtime in May of 2020 during the COVID pandemic. It was a great way for me to escape and pour my life into something artistic. Here I am, almost 4 full years later, putting this out into the universe to enjoy. A lot of things have happened in my life in those years, but one of the constant veins of gold that remains is my appreciation for John Darnielle and his band, the Mountain Goats. I hope you enjoy it as well. You know that feeling when you hear a song and it connects with you so much that you want it to continue for another 15 minutes? Maybe you put it on repeat for a while. Well, I think this book is a spiritual sequel to one of my favorite songs called The Best Ever Death Metal Band Out of Denton. That's the opening track of John Darnielle's 2002 album, All Hail West Texas, and it was the very first taste of the Mountain Goats I ever had in the fall of 2002. I became a junkie for Darnielle's art from that moment on. The Best Ever Death Metal Band Out of Denton is a song about 2 teen boys in Denton, Texas, who start a death metal band, but one of them gets sent to a locked treatment facility for adolescents because his parents are upset by all of the satanic iconography in their band artwork. The Best Ever Death Metal Band Out of Denton kind of opens up the concept behind this book. Both are about a young man's experience in a locked treatment facility and their escape through hard rock music. The teens in the song are named Jeff and Cyrus, while the teens in this book are named Roger Painter and Mike, who happens to be a drummer. And both the song and this book were inspired by the very real-life experiences that the author had when he was a caregiver at a locked treatment facility for adolescents. So Darnielle writes from an empathetic perspective on teens that he used to serve, and it shows. While I've been a huge fan of John Darnielle and the Mountain Goats since 2002, I have never been a huge fan of Black Sabbath or Ozzy Osbourne. But I knew someone in high school who was. He was my freshman pre-algebra teacher. He was a genuinely nice guy who loved to play harmonica and was in a few garage bands that some of the students started. He was tall and lanky, and if we behaved during class the entire week, as a reward, he would sometimes bust out his harmonica and play a song for us on Fridays. He was a Christian, and I remember that he made a claim that Black Sabbath had some Christian songs, which I thought was bonkers at the time, because any Black Sabbath track that I had heard up until that moment was on the local alternative radio station, and they were all about war and Iron Man. A few years back, I found my own copy of Master of Reality on vinyl for under $5. As I put it under the needle, I was blown away by the track, after forever. And I was immediately thrown back in time to all the memories of that freshman year pre-algebra class with my teacher. He was right. There are some heavy Christian/Catholic influences on Black Sabbath. Of all the things that I feel when I think about Master of Reality, the album, my fondest is the cover art. First of all, it's embossed, so that's awesome. Secondly, you have to work to see the title of the album because it's black on black, and only the embossing lets you see it. Lastly, I absolutely love the font work. At first glance, it appears as though all the text is just some sort of psychedelic pot smoke coming out of a bong. But to me, it looks like a flag is waving, and the bottom right of the text is normal, the last half of the word reality. It's like they are saying, here's our rock and roll flag, and we're waving it proudly. The typeface is also very similar to what a teenager would doodle on their notebooks. Giant block letters in all caps. Black Sabbath really did have a knack connecting with the downtrodden teen. If you like Darnielle's artistic reflections on Black Sabbath/Ozzy Osbourne, boy are you in luck. Darnielle has stated in interviews and social media that he has recorded an entire album's worth of Ozzy Osbourne/Black Sabbath songs circa 2015. However, these songs have only been released sporadically. Here are a list of these songs. Number 1, Answering the Phone. This is a 2013 bonus track from All Hail West Texas. This song is about someone who knows something is wrong with him, and it began by listening to Black Sabbath's first self-titled album. Number 2, Song for Black Sabbath's second North American tour. This is an officially unreleased song from about 2014, and it's only been performed live, but you can find videos of it on YouTube. In May 2014, Merge Records released a vinyl 7-inch single of the Mountain Goats cover of Shot in the Dark. Number 4. In March 2016, the Mountain Goats released the song Going Back to California, about the plane crash that killed Randy Rhoads, a member of Ozzy Osbourne's band, in 1982. Number 5. In October 2017, the Mountain Goats released a 5-song EP called Marsh Witch Visions. I believe the title of this EP is based on the album art for Black Sabbath's self-titled original first album. And this EP was almost entirely about Ozzy Osbourne and was dedicated to Mike Kay in Claremont, where the author first heard Master of Reality when he was 16, desperate and high. These are the 4 tracks about Ozzy from that EP. Number one, Marsh Witch Vision. That's hard to say. Number 2, Shirtless in Hamburg. Number 3, California Jam. Number 4, No More Tears. And lastly, this song, Passaic 1975, which is from 2019's In League with Dragons. This song is told from Ozzy Osbourne's perspective when he was constantly drunk and high while touring in 1975. That's about all I know that have been specifically related to Ozzy Osbourne/Black Sabbath as of this release in April 2024. Anyway, if you've listened this far, I hope that you've enjoyed the book and my reading of it. It has been a labor of love, and I have learned a lot in the process. I encourage you to check out the author's other books and his music through his band, the Mountain Goats, especially the 2 albums he released under that band name in 2002, All Hail West Texas and Tallahassee. Both are very near to my heart. Without further ado, here's the song, The Best Ever Death Metal Band out of Denton.
Ever death metal band out of Denton with a couple of guys who'd been friends since grade school. One was named Cyrus, the other was Jeff, and they practiced twice a week in Jeff's bedroom. The best ever death metal band out of Denton never settled on a name, but the top 3 contenders after weeks of debate were Satan's Fingers and the Killers and the Hospital Bombers. and fame. So in script that made prominent use of a pentagram, they stenciled their drumheads and guitars with their names. And this was how Cyrus got sent to the school where they told him he'd never be famous. And this was why Jeff, in the letters he'd write to his friend, helped develop a plan to get even. When you punish a person for dreaming his dream, don't expect him to thank or forgive you. The best ever death metal band out of Denton will in time both outpace and outlive you. Hail Satan!